billionaire Robert Shillman. I kid you not, that is his name.
Always with the names. From there we get an unintentionally hilarious segue into the next story.
We'll get to the news. We'll get to the really important matters of the day, including Trump basically listing people he doesn't like as terrorists in the country. We'll be right back.
So Trump has decided to label Antifa a terrorist organization despite it not having any kind of structural organizing behind it.
So this really does remind me of the...
It is. Okay. Let's go.
On a national level, we have lost our democracy. It does not exist. So I got really bad news for you. None of your representatives represent you. They represent the people who pay them. Yes, the Republicans are dirty and corrupt as it gets, but so are the Democrats. How about the guy who promised us change? How's that working out for us? He said, I'm going to change the game. Really? What have you done to change the game? No. He has no intention of changing a damn thing. So you're waiting for a hero? Well, we already had a hero who promised us overwhelming change and then gave us nothing. Now, the next guy that comes and puts that sign up that says change, you're gonna believe him? No, we're not gonna believe him. Because 9 out of 10, no, 99 out of 10 times, he's a liar. He got money to lie to you. You cannot rely on the federal government. They're the bad guys. They're not listening. You think we're having a debate in this country?
What are we going to learn today?
Well, before I never entertained the idea that 9/11 was anything but what the government said.
Right? I'm not running around saying 9/11 was an inside job.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
definitely not.
I don't know.
What are we doing here? At some point I want to just make a video where I rank Adam Sandler movies or something, but then someone says something like,
I don't know.
and I just... Few things off the bat. One, the response I've gotten is absolutely incredible. I expected to get maybe 50 views on my first Hassan vid, and the idea that not only over 100,000 people have watched this, but that they actually liked it and wanted more is insane to me.
7 Nobel Prizes.
Thank you so much. 2, I started a Patreon. Right now I'm still new and learning, so I can't promise a whole lot, but this would help me focus more of my time on these videos and improve the quality. No obligation. I'm still gonna try to make more videos either way. 3, how do I feel about the CEO of Twitch being called in front of Congress? Honestly, not great. The Republican majority in Congress has taken the legitimate issue of anti-Semitism on Twitch and YouTube and twisted it into a crusade against their own enemies. If they manage to get Hassan banned that way, it won't be a victory. To borrow an adjective, using the brittle power of authority to force Twitch's hand without any kind of cultural shift or structural change beyond it means that once their authority is broken, there's nothing holding back a reversion to where we started. The way I see it, the only way through that has a lasting impact is Dan Clancy banning Hassan himself. Now, the Young Turks will tell you repeatedly, incessantly, that they operate on principles of honesty and integrity, but then you'll hear something like, I don't know, and you have to wonder what's going on. They've got over 6 million YouTube subscribers. They've been operating on YouTube near enough since the site was founded, when Cenk Uygur started posting videos and streaming in 2005.
Whoa.
They've expanded the number of shows under their umbrella, and they've been a hotspot for a lot of well-known progressive and leftist journalists like Emma Vigeland, now at the Majority Report.
Who cares if Hezbollah has money? They're a political party in a different country. I mean, you can call them a terrorist organization. They're a resistance organization toward...
Oh no, text. Go read the text.
A different country. I mean,
I remember this video. They sex traffic Syrian refugees. That's true. They helped Assad remain in power. That's true. After chemical weapons. True. They have trafficked substantial amounts of cocaine and heroin. True.
Call them a terrorist organization. They're a resistance organization toward...
For months after October 7th, they launched thousands of rockets into Israel unprovoked, forcing tens of thousands to evacuate. True.
Israel, and I'm sure if I were to parse through the views of
they
this
called for gay people to be killed. True.
Resistance group, that I would find many of their views distasteful.
Ryan Grimm, owner of Dropsite News.
Hey.
Hamas is, savage, brutal, bunch of savage, brutal rapists. But don't say evidence, because then you'll say, well, what evidence do we have? According to the UN, they don't actually have any evidence that Hamas participated.
Are we then of the opinion that like maybe a couple sexually related violence happened and then Israel is largely fabricating the claim?
Well, I mean, we know for certain that much of it is fabricated.
Crystal Ball's husband, Jimmy Dore, Sean King, Nina Turner, Russian mouthpiece Dave Rubin, and Cenk's own nephew.
Fuck are you gonna do, bro?
Oh no.
To their credit, their operation is a lot more professional news-like than a regular stream, though that isn't exactly a high bar. You'll get a specific piece of news and a basic overview of the
I
fact.
didn't know Grimm was TYT. I had no idea.
before Jank and his co-host Anna Kasparian
I don't
get into their own perspectives, basically acting as anchor and pundit. It seems like they really vie for legitimacy.
I don't know.
And I do want to know, so I watched 1 week of streams, and I'm going to tell you what I learned. And since their main show is only a couple of hours long, hopefully this will be a bit more easygoing than my last 2 subjects. One last thing, I promise this won't be a series exclusively about left-leaning media. It's not like Asmongold is actively streaming right now anyway.
Actively.
We begin the day after Charlie Kirk's murder, while the killer and their
What's this? Stepan Bornell.
I'm talking about like, yeah.
Jesus Christ, LOL.
I'm talking about like, yes, we're going to surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes, you're a freak.
Fucking jank.
You're a total creep.
Okay.
All right. I'm talking about like, yes, we're going to surveil everybody. Everyone will be on their best behavior. Yes, you're a freak. You're a total creep.
That's, is that anti-Semitism? Or just reasonable critique of Zionism? me when she does the thing. Oh no. Oh no.
ideology still haven't been identified.
Yeah, so this is super strange. They very rarely go on a rooftop, plan it out meticulously.
Of course, looking back, knowing what we do now, it's easy to say that someone's prediction was obviously wrong. But we're not going to have that problem.
No, none of this looks like an amateur. If they catch him and we find out a rational explanation, no problem. Great, that's awesome. If they don't catch him,
we will pull out the world map and speculate wildly.
You're telling me one shot makes a clean getaway and he wasn't a professional?
Professional assassins in the vein Cenk is talking about don't actually exist, especially ones that would target someone high profile in a Western country.
This investigation so far has been abysmal. That also, of course, furthers some conspiratorial thoughts.
I don't trust our government at all anymore. That's weird. That's also weird. We couldn't find any trace of him except this rifle and then the casings, and it says transgender and Antifa. And then the New York Times says, oh, by the way, that might not be true at all. What the F is going on here? Kash Patel, yeah, sure, he's a clown. He also weirdly took off the lead FBI person in Salt Lake City just a little while back. That's super weird.
Kash Patel is uniquely unqualified to run the FBI. And like most
the censorship hearing, is that actually happening? Big Tech and Twit, the Senate. I thought it was a House committee. I thought it got postponed. Why is there a video for this? Censorship hearing, Senate versus Big Tech. This is different, isn't it? This isn't the Discord, Twitch. This isn't the radicalization thing. This is about social media platforms suppressing free speech. Ted Cruz. That's different. This isn't the House committee. House committee's postponed last I checked. Anyway, Barbas, thanks for $2. I don't know. True. FBI fires more agents, including those who knelt during racial justice protests. Yeah, the FBI's fucked, man. They had that loyalty test, remember? We covered that, the loyalty test. Where someone is suing the FBI for violating a almost 100-year-old law, where they would have interview questions, and it's like, you know, like first couple of interview questions are fairly normal. One was like, number one, what's the biggest threat to the United States? Okay, FBI. They'll tell you like Al-Qaeda and whatever the fuck, Russia, China. And then the next question would be something like, how can the FBI be improved? Okay. Question 3, who did you vote for president? Okay, is that legal? Question 5, when did you decide to start supporting Trump? It was so fucking blatant. It was like the most disgusting, corrupt, authoritarian, fucking psycho, on-the-nose bullshit. Yeah, no one cares. I feel like that story's got barely any attention. Like, no one gives a fuck. That the FBI is basically just like purity testing and loyalty testing their hirees. Yeah, it's mental.
The federal government since January 20th, the FBI has been purged of anyone who has shown even a trace of antipathy towards Trump. But conspiracies, like what Cenk is not so subtly alluding to, requires way too many people at all levels, including state and local, to be involved, and by that point it's impossible to actually pull off. What we all witnessed at the time was not a potential cover-up, it was 1,000 different people, mostly outside the government, trying to get ahead of whatever the truth turned out to be.
This isn't the 1960s. You're not going to be able to go, oh yeah, there was a magic bullet. Yeah, a bunch of senators looked into it. It's not even 9/11. Oh yeah, a bunch of senators looked into it.
Oh goody, we're doing JFK conspiracies too. And then we we get our first ad break for TYT sponsors Prize Picks and Chapter. More on them later. We come back to more conspiracy.
Not the dark money.
Remember, there's many different countries that would love to sow division and hatred in this country. I mean, I wrote on social media today, they should double Trump's Secret Service. If you hit Trump, there's going to be an uncontrollable rage in this country.
It's not really worth explaining that doubling Trump's Secret Service doesn't just equal twice as protected, but we've now extrapolated from Charlie Kirk getting shot in Utah that someone is going to take a shot at Trump on the other side of the country. And now we begin the whitewashing of Charlie Kirk and the both sidesing of political violence.
A bunch of Republicans saying, oh, Charlie would have wanted you to limit freedom of speech. No, I don't think he would have.
Just want to note that political violence has unfortunately harmed people on both sides of the political aisle. The rhetoric used on both sides of the political aisle can get fiery. To pretend like that only exists on the left is a bit ridiculous.
Anna has an interesting interpretation of Trump's rhetoric.
Trump kind of ebbs and flows. You'll hear him say things that I believe, as president of the United States, is incredibly responsible at a time when a leader should be trying to cool tensions. This morning, Trump kind of changed his tone in a private message to CNBC's Joe Kernan.
Is it worth noting that a CNBC financial news host read a note that was contradicted by the president himself not long after anyway?
It would be nice to hear that message directly from the president's mouth.
I thought not.
Actually, later today, Trump changed his tone yet again. You know, Charlie Kirk was not someone who was on the far, far right. Okay. In fact, he had a pretty significant group of haters who were on the right of him.
That's not evidence that he isn't far right. That just means that there are people who don't have a problem being more direct about it. The difference between saying,
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
And
Hassan, Destiny, hey, idiots. This Zionist-backed Republican government, they're waiting, they're begging for the opportunity, for a reason to wipe the far left off the map because the leftists protest Israel. Instead, like your uncle, of recognizing that.
Wait, no, bad example. He agrees with you.
Which is, you know, inspiring some public figures on the right to declare that we're at war, that they're at war with the left.
Interesting slip there.
I don't know. The rhetoric I'm hearing is really scary.
So the answer to that isn't, it's the left's fault, it's the right's fault. That should be obvious to all of us, but I don't think it's even close to obvious.
Jank reads a viewer comment about George W. Bush.
But the one thing I'll always give him credit for is that he united us after 9/11.
You know, I wanted to reflexively disagree with this one because my memories of the Bush era are somewhat blurry at this point. But,
Our nation is waging a war on a radical network of terrorists, not on a religion and not on a civilization. One of the deepest commitments of America is tolerance. No one should be unfairly judged by appearance or ethnic background or religious faith.
What is happening in the world?
Remember this, isn't the whole meme about religion of peace? Doesn't that actually come from Bush? I know he used to say it, but I just wonder if that's where people come up with it, where like all the racists will say, oh, religion of peace, huh? Yeah, I think it actually came from Bush. I think he used to say it quite a lot.
It's the calls for unity from George W. Bush.
There are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and it's evil twin protectionism, and it's evil triplet nativism. There was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? What happened in Europe mattered because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. An immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period.
Every single prominent left-winger, and I mean prominent left-winger with a significant following, has not called for continued violence against the right.
So you won't mind if I just grab this clip in case you obviously foreshadowing?
The pearl clutching from the right is really bothering me, considering the record of their calls for violence or their mocking of left-wing figures.
Yeah. Calling out a congressman's hypocrisy isn't nothing, but doesn't hold a lot of weight when it's put on equal footing with TikToker Leftism is Based 4927, who only has 10 followers.
I didn't see any prominent figures on the left or Democrats saying anything awful. It was smaller accounts or just randos. Yeah. But whenever I ran into one of them, like they're joking around about his neck wound. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you people?
I did not know that Charlie Kirk said this about it.
God, imagine doing that. That's right, so it's not good. Who would do that?
He essentially said that since I don't have children, I don't care about the future of this country.
Good Lord.
I haven't been able to like kind of shake it off. What I appreciated about Charlie Kirk was that he provided a platform for people who disagreed with him. People who don't understand the value of that really frustrate me because you're not thinking strategically and you don't really care about winning.
Yeah, I've been banned by mainstream media. And so a lot of the right-wing shows have been more open-minded about having me on than MSNBC or CNN.
That might be worth interrogating as to why, you know?
I can't believe that they're asking Anna on, and she's been doing an amazing job, and she's going to be on CNN tonight at 10 o'clock. But in my experience, only a certain set of ideas are allowed. If you go outside the guardrails, that's it, you're out.
Well, that makes it sound more like a you problem than Chief.
There are some.
CNN literally has MAGA people on, and they're actually generally quite soft on them, especially as a proportion to how mental they all are. Okay.
Who are attempting to lower the temperature. One of those individuals is conservative commentator Eric Erickson.
There is Marxist ideology. They don't want you to know they're lying. They don't want you to believe they're lying. They don't want to act like they're lying. What they're doing is they're using different words to then get you to embrace their reality. It's very pernicious. It's why you do have to insist that men are men and women are women.
Here, Jank misunderstands how Grok works.
So I've told you guys before, I like Grok. I love that there's an AI out there that scours 60,000 or 100,000 videos, whatever we have online, and goes.
Also, I'm extremely surprised he likes the AI propaganda child of Elon Musk. Like, I figured someone on YouTube would prefer Gemini. The next story they cover is the murder of a Ukrainian refugee by a schizophrenic man on a train. Let's see where TYT's audience is at with it.
Although I'm a little worried about it that, wow, yes is winning dramatically. No, I don't agree with that. At all.
Good, you shouldn't. No, wait, they're actually talking about the ACLU.
I'd like to know, what does the ACLU have to say about his freedom today?
The best I could find that justifies this critique is a Supreme Court case back in the 70s that was specifically about people who are not dangerous and not mentally unwell being institutionalized anyway. The kind of regulation Jank explicitly supports here.
I am for involuntarily institutionalizing some people. We had the bad old days where their standards for institutionalizing people were terrible and the places they sent them were even worse.
Now Anna tries to put a class spin on the stabbing.
Places where the elite, if you will, don't have to worry about using if they need to go to and fro work.
Rich people also take the train.
Nothing helps feed into the desires of neoliberals who do not want to spend any resources on public services than this ideology that just essentially says, oh no, we're doing it for freedom.
This is gobbledygook. Neoliberal here doesn't mean anything. If they want to say Bill Clinton cut mental health programs the same way Reagan did, there was reduced expansion in his healthcare bills, but overall his administration saw increased funding. Who's neoliberal after that? Obama? I mean, Biden increased funding with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022.
They don't want to spend tax revenue.
The slow erosion of institutions that could manage and treat the mentally ill has been going on for decades due to government budget cuts and ideological opposition by people who think the mentally ill just need more Jesus. Also, why is this a story you're covering at all? What happened here is a tragic failure of multiple systems to protect people from these kinds of outcomes. But it's being carried mainly by salacious culture war rightoids who want to take advantage of an innocent white girl getting killed by a black guy. Even you guys decided to needlessly play the tape of her murder as though that provides any substantive context.
We have become so desensitized to violence that for over 2 minutes after this poor woman was stabbed, no one did a damn thing.
That's not being desensitized like everyone on that train plays to.
This is unfortunately just what people have done historically for quite a while. There have been stories about this in the past where like something like 50 witnesses will hear someone getting murdered for 45 minutes, like attacked and murdered, and no one will do anything because they all think someone else will do it, or because like literally some people just feel too awkward. It's like it's really shit. People need to get better. I don't know.
Much Call of Duty. That's threat avoidance. The guy has a knife, and if they saw what happened, they're probably in shock because survival instincts kick in that tell you to avoid danger.
There was one thing in the old days that was a good thing. That was when people looked out for one another, and men would be men. A man is supposed to protect. Sorry, but that's just reality.
At this point, the story of Kitty
Man
Genovese
protect.
is more of an urban legend of
Yeah.
people failing to help someone than a real tragic murder, but it's a good example of the fact that there are no good old days of traditional gender roles playing out in their ideal form. We can only do the best we can with the circumstances we're given, and we shouldn't put pressure on people to act in situations they're unprepared for.
I'm not putting it on you that, hey, the guy's got a knife.
At least like apprehend the guy in some way so he doesn't potentially hurt someone else.
Nope, no bad idea. Getting into a fight with a guy who's holding a knife is a good way to get killed. You're not Liam Neeson. You don't know how to expertly put a guy in a wrist lock to disarm them. Going after a guy with a knife is a great way to split a paramedic's time between two people instead of one. We finally get to Israel, and I'm very divided. Maybe it's just that my bar for good coverage has fallen so far the devil is using it as a limbo pole, but the coverage is much more substantial, and yet also because of that, somehow worse. At least while I'm watching, they cover the factual news of an Israeli airstrike on Qatar that was targeting the Hamas negotiators Israel was communicating with to end the war. But where they draw conclusions, they find conspiracy. For example, Jank recalls covering an Israeli-American sniper who was secretly recorded in an interview where he admits his unit likely killed a total of 105 people and confirms a significant number, if not all, were either unarmed or clearly civilians and not a threat.
Yesterday, we showed a guy who sounded exactly like an SS soldier, bragging about how he killed 105 Palestinians with no weapons that were defenseless.
They had simply stepped over an invisible, arbitrary line their group had established as a kill zone. But then he'll go from that legitimate series of war crimes which should be fully investigated, condemned, and adjudicated to, and that's why Israel runs the United States government.
When's the last time they passed a law that helped the super rich?
Are they talking about they're not talking about the same one where the guy is talking about how he was, I mean, he could be lying, but he was describing people that he was shooting at as combatants in a combat zone, like near a tunnel. Wasn't that the guy? Again, like testimony like this is always just very, or like stories like this are always very, like, they're so much more vague than what you see when you see like an actual, like very clear killing of civilians, where you just see like the unarmed people are like lined up or they're bound or they can't defend themselves and they've surrendered or whatever. And then they're just like popped up against the wall and shot, or they're like running away as a civilian and then they're like on the floor and then the guy just runs up right to their face and shoots them. Like, you never really see stuff like that. It's always this kind of story about like this guy said that there was an exclusion zone. He said there was like a tunnel. He said there was like an armed guy that he shot, and then an unarmed guy came over to the guy that was shot and then they killed them. And it's like, okay, what the fuck am I doing with this information? Like, just because someone's like, from that story in particular, I think if it's the same one we're thinking of, where the guy talks about how he's in a zone where there's either mines or IEDs. He says there's a tunnel, and he says that he killed an armed fire, and then an unarmed person came up and started like trying to drag the body of the fighter, and then he shoots him. I think that was one that, and I think the quote that he said was something like, "You don't ask questions, you just shoot," which that sounds like the best indication of like war crime investigation, because he was saying effectively that it didn't matter about situations of doubt. They just assumed combatant based on, I guess, like slightly irregular activity, like who goes up to a body in the middle of a fire zone and drags the body. But this is not like SS soldier fucking territory by any means, even if it sounds criminal. But because as far as I know, that guy who's being interviewed is kind of like the main witness as well, unfortunately. But
Operations or foreign governments, endlessly. Then the minute they come back to us, they're like, we don't have any money left. We gave it all to ExxonMobil and Pfizer and Israel.
And it completely undermines him. They'll say that Israel shouldn't have conducted the airstrike on Qatar, but then they'll go on to say that Israel shouldn't be conducting
medics do. But as far as I know, the person who did this wasn't in any kind of like medical, because medics wear gear to look like they're medics. That was why the ambulance fucking thing was such a like complete fucking failure and like horrific like act by the IDF, wasn't it? Because they said that the ambulance lights were off and they couldn't identify the vehicle. But then we looked and we saw that the vehicle was not only on, the lights were on. The people who came out of it were in like high-vis. They were in medical outfits. But the guy who was dragging that body did not look like that. He just looked like a regular person. He looked kind of like he was dressed the same way as the guy that got shot. So
offensives against any of the belligerent actors in the region who had been attacking them for months.
Israel feels that they are entitled to bomb or carry out strikes in any sovereign country they feel like.
They'll compare civilian to combatant kill ratios and conclude Israel is therefore worse than Assad's Syria.
The ratio is significantly worse than Hamas, worse than what Assad did in Syria, worse than almost any terrorist activity in terms of percentage of civilians killed.
Or at least that it's even worth comparing when the population density and intentions of the actors in these places are nothing alike. I'm with them in the setup, and then they lose me in the conclusion.
So if you're killing the negotiators for peace, you're obviously not going to get peace. Is Bibi solely responsible for peace negotiations falling through? Yes, is winning overwhelmingly, as it should. It is an empirical fact.
He then goes on to compare Hamas to Osama bin Laden.
Just like bin Laden. Okay, wait.
To imply that Israel has less justification to go after Hamas because they have more legitimacy to the Palestinians and were negotiating for the hostages, which is not the argument I would be making if I wanted to make it clear that the Palestinians are not all Hamas. And to be clear, I'm not making that argument either.
Has won an election before, but wait a minute. The Israeli government is bigger terrorist than Hamas. That's empirical. You can catch feelings over it. I don't care.
Fine, I guess we're doing this.
Uh-oh.
Hamas was initially a charity called Mujama al-Islamiyah, founded by Sheikh Yassin in 1973 to build infrastructure in Gaza like doctors' offices and daycares. They would also encourage women to wear hijabs and attack left-wing organizations like the Palestinian Red Crescent Society due to what they described as immorality. Israel, as it would later be revealed, funded this group as they saw it as a counter to the PLO in order to fracture any political unity in Gaza to prevent the formation of an official state. Where Mujama al-Islamiyah was religious and conservative, the PLO was secular. This was an extremely bad idea, as it turns out, for a number of reasons, not the least of which are
They were also peaceful, eh? The Mujama al-Islamiyah were completely peaceful.
repercussions it had on Israeli civilians, and the devastation to Gazan society that facilitated Hamas's entrenchment. Some take this as an opportunity to place all of the blame for Hamas on Israel, and while Israel shouldn't have put itself in a position to bear any of the responsibility, they could only try to take advantage of existing sentiments in Gaza, the same way right-wing Christian nationalists in the United States didn't create the Likud party. So, in 1984, the Israeli military discovered a stockpile of weapons.
Being peaceful in terms of like their approach to Israel, they were like a non-violent movement. Until they had a weapons cache discovered in a mosque, and that's when Yassin and the others were jailed for a good bit. It was like in the mid-80s, I think. It was very close to the first Intifada. Then they were caught with weapons.
One of their mosques and arrested Sheikh Yassin, but he was released in 1985 in an agreement to trade Palestinian prisoners for IDF hostages of the 1982 Lebanon War. In 1987, Sheikh Yassin started Hamas as a paramilitary wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yahya Sinwar would be charged with finding any Palestinians who were collaborators with Israel. In 1989, after carrying out their first attack, Yahya Sinwar would be given 4 life sentences for planning out the abduction and murder of 2 Israeli soldiers and 4 Palestinians he saw as collaborators. Yassin was arrested again, and after hundreds of Hamas activists were deported to Lebanon, the group began dealings with Hezbollah. Then, in 1992, they created the Al-Qassam Brigades. Hamas opposed the 1993 Oslo Accords, the compact between Israel and the PLO that would hopefully create a bridge to peace. After the Cave of the Patriarch massacre, wherein American-Israeli settler Baruch Goldstein killed 29 unarmed civilians and injured over 100 more in Hebron, Hamas began targeting civilians directly. In 1999, Hamas was banned from Jordan by King Abdullah to ensure peace negotiations with Israel did not fall apart. In 2000, after the failure of the Camp David summit, Hamas launches the Second Intifada. About 138 suicide bombings are carried out in Israel. The IDF kills thousands. In 2004, Sheikh Yassin and another Hamas official offered a truce in exchange for the establishment of a Palestinian state that covered East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. Israel killed them both a few months later. It's unclear whether they're
Hamas attacked civilians before Goldstein. They did a couple of bombing attacks, but they were... You're right, they did, but they were also debating it. They were not like, they hadn't really made it like a full, whatever, like it wasn't really determined to be their full policy by that point. It was after the Cave of the Patriarchs when Yassin was just like, yes, we are going to smack, basically, yeah.
Was sincere. In 2005, the Second Intifada ends. The IDF withdraws from Gaza while maintaining sea and airspace control.
They attacked not in Israel proper. They did go into Israel proper a couple of times before Cave of the Patriarchs. but it just wasn't like the overall, like the broad directive.
In 2006, Hamas ran as a political party in elections to Palestinian parliament on a platform of violent resistance against Israel. From there, the US and EU conditioned aid to the Palestinians on Hamas renouncing violence, recognizing Israel, and endorsing the peace process outlined in the Oslo Accords. Hamas rejected this. By 2007, Hamas had completely ousted Fatah and the PLO from Gaza, with at least 600 people being killed in the fighting between them. This is all on Wikipedia, by the way. If you're reporting on this stuff, you can just look it up. Israel begins a strict blockade on Gaza. Cultural repression and totalitarian rule by Hamas is strict. In the following years, there's a cycle...
Fucking far for. Oh no!
Cultural repression and totalitarian rule by Hamas is strict. In the following years, there's a cycle of clashes, ceasefires, and Israeli incursions into Gaza. In an effort at slowly improving relations, Israel would issue work permits for Palestinians to enter Israel, and Qatari aid money was allowed into Gaza in the hopes of improving conditions to temper extremism. In 2011, Yahya Sinwar is released with over 1,000 others in a prisoner exchange. In 2017, Hamas updates its charter, and Trump recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Hamas takes that as a declaration of war. In 2018, there is the Great March of Return. Independent activists begin a protest of weekly marches to the border between Gaza and Israel in protest of Israel's blockade and for a right of return of refugees. Thousands joined the protests intending to be nonviolent. However, there were those in the protests who did engage in violence, some throwing stones and Molotov cocktails, others firing rifles or throwing bombs. The circumstances behind the violence across the months of protest are foggy, but at the risk of being crude in my brevity, it was basically some protesters escalating to provoke a response, and the IDF not knowing how to aim. Thousands were injured by IDF gunfire, and about 180 were killed. Hamas claimed 50 as militants. In 2020, the Abraham...
Those stats are a little bit off. Hamas did not claim 50 as militants. They claimed... So on the 180 is the overall death toll from the entire 9-month period. Hamas claimed 50 people on one day, on the 14th of May, when 62 or something people died. That's when they claimed 50 members. The Al-Qassam brigades, overall, I believe they account for where the fuck is that? I think my numbers got just under 30% of all the deaths in that period that the Human Rights Report covered were from actual militant groups, and a lot of the other ones were affiliates of some sort, most of them within the buffer zone when they were shot. Now, affiliate doesn't necessarily mean combatant. It would have to be what they were doing that makes them a combatant. Where was the... No, that's Goldstone. I don't want Goldstone. Fuck off. My goddamn obsidian shits. All right, let's see. Great March of Return. It was 44 Al-Qassam deaths from the total period. So he's close. 44 out of 50. Whatever. Not bad. Not bad. We can give him a pass there. Conduit. But the 50 number he's getting is because of the deadliest day. That's 44 Al-Qassam. On the first day, I think it was like 6 out of 18 people killed were either PIJ, Al-Qassam, or there was a DFLP leader as well. Maybe an Al-Aqsa Martyrs guy, but that's harder to tell. PIJ outside of the main dates lost 2 guys. They lost about... How many did they lose? So, yeah, on the deadliest day, 62 killed. PIJ claimed 3. So it was 50 Hamas, 3 PIJ. Some affiliates and possible militants, but this is all circumstantial evidence. Possible in hostilities. Other deaths out of main dates. Someone from Fatah. Someone wounded. Someone claimed by Al-Aqsa Martyrs. Yeah. The UN report undercounted like fuck. The Israeli intel people seem to claim that they found like 51 affiliates for Hamas. Their methodology is very much just pictures on Facebook, though. It's a lot more circumstantial. Very vague. It's not untoward for Hamas to claim people who weren't doing anything, so anyway.
Accords are announced and signed. The UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco recognize Israel. In 2023, on October 7th, Hamas kills over 1,000 people in Israel, takes over 200 hostage, and the war in Gaza begins. Peace negotiations are frequently stalled by Hamas intransigence and Israeli belligerence. The main sticking point of the negotiation would be whether Hamas could stay in power without disarming. By October 2025, at least 65,000 Palestinians have been killed, and over 150,000 have been injured.
The ratio is significantly worse than Hamas, worse than what Assad did in Syria.
October 7th kill ratio is a meaningless statistic when it was an unprovoked attack intended to draw the IDF into Gaza with the intention.
Unprovoked? What? The blockade? Okay. Even with it unprovoked against, like, yeah, the way that your enemy fights, this is why ratios are so stupid. Like, you can invade a country that has done nothing to you and kill 100% soldiers and it still be completely unjust. Like with Ukraine, for example. You can also have a situation where you kill, like Hamas did, I guess, something like 300 or 400 soldiers roughly, and the rest civilians. It's like 800, yeah, about 350 soldiers. But that's because if you're Hamas and you want to get to civilians, you can only do it by going through soldiers. Hamas, in their first wave, they had to go through the border checkpoints and the military spots on the border area and the military bases before the kibbutzim, because Israel puts their soldiers, typically, in front of civilians. Hamas puts themselves underneath civilians. So there's a completely reversed method of fighting. Obviously, one is going to endanger civilians more. Like, the actions of your opponent matters when you're talking about ratios. Ratios are so stupid. Fuck. This was the Hamas suicide. It was a car bomb attack. This was... Now, I don't know if this was in West Bank, though. This was in the Mahola Junction. It was very close to the edge, though. Very close to the edge. Very close to the edge. This was before, I believe the target was, I think they killed, this ended up killing a Palestinian, didn't it? Wait, what's this? There's a terrorist who attacked someone on March 1993. They wanted to carry out the attack within the Green Line, but the checkpoints prevented him from reaching there. Interesting. Okay. L plus ratio, true.
Fighting a prolonged siege.
Using Netanyahu's logic, well, yeah, we murdered the entire government of Yemen. The Houthis that were...
1. The Houthis are not Yemen's government. 2. This is a terrible argument for proportionate response given the level of escalation from the Houthis towards Israel and the surrounding countries, who have been impacted by their blockade. Over a year and a half since it started. By your own standard, this was restraint.
The sniper who was murdering all those innocent Palestinians, he said that he was one of the guys on a college campus in America that said his feelings were hurt.
I can't tell if it's intentional, but the implication here is that Daniel Robb was on campus sometime after 2023, but he graduated in 2021, and his complaints of anti-Semitism do have some substantive backing, though that's now all rightly called into question by his actions in Gaza.
We've lost all faith in our institutions. They are worthless. When's the last time Congress passed a law that helped us?
Our next segment is about Seinfeld comparing pro-Palestine protesters to the Klan, because at least the Klan is outspoken about not liking Jews.
Yeah, it seems that the big change, so yeah, I think Sev is mostly right. In 1993, so 1994 February was Cave of the Patriarchs. So in 93, Hamas were still didn't really have that much operational capacity because obviously the Al-Qassam brigades only formed in 92. There were some border attacks that went over, like small-scale border attacks that went over into Israel proper, but they weren't suicide bombings. The suicide bombings were all bar one launched after Cave of the Patriarchs. So yeah, it was like, it still happened sometimes before 94, but it was very sparse. And some of the attributations to Hamas are quite murky as well. They definitely didn't have like an overarching decision to target Israel proper until after the massacre, until after Hebron.
Comedian Jerry Seinfeld has unfortunately and tragically reached new levels of depravity.
Worse than the time he dated a
VC now. I'm doing this video.
17-year-old.
It is not difficult to distinguish between a foreign government and a foreign military and the entirety of an identity of a group of people. Okay, for me, it's not hard at all.
Then why are you so bad at it? So you have singled out a Jewish person who has called out, albeit too coarsely, the anti-Semitism of the pro-Palestine movement.
What they are effectively communicating to the world is that anyone who has a problem with genocidal acts is by definition an anti-Semite.
I don't personally believe that anti-Semitism is inherent to being pro-Palestine, but a lot of the loudest voices and a lot of the imagery has colored them that way because the leaders of the movement haven't done a good...
This image is so fucking funny, man. I'm sorry, like, not to do the looks thing, but look at the state of this person with a fucking Hezbollah flag, mate. Like, you're so fucking cooked. I don't know.
Loudest voices and a lot of the imagery has colored them that way because the leaders of the movement haven't done a good enough job of honing their message. Instead, we got humanitarian aid pizza, the storming of Colombia, and fights with police. All actions that have centered on the protesters instead of Palestine itself.
He's unintentionally making anti-Semitism seem like a good thing.
Whether or not you believe in the prevalence of anti-Semitism therein, at this point, the selfishness of it is undeniable.
And so Jerry Seinfeld, it turns out, is a racist. And thinks, no, Palestinians should be forever enslaved by Israel.
And Cenk and Anna doubling down on the vitriol that pushed people away is just more of the same.
Imprisoned in the occupied territories by my moral beloved Israel, okay? They're dirt. They're like cockroaches. I don't free Palestine.
God.
Why would I free a bunch of cockroaches?
I'm not saying that because I think Seinfeld's words were good.
To be an overt, disgusting racist.
Frankly, I think he said a lot of stuff that's been at best ignorant.
A, yes, he's obviously a racist. B, no, if you want to free Palestinians, that means you're more hateful than the KKK.
And I think he's become a little too disconnected to have an opinion worth listening to. But he's an adult and extremely wealthy, so he can take care of himself.
Jerry Seinfeld, Palestinians. Whoever wants the freedom hates the Jews.
My point is that what Seinfeld said isn't worth this much time to tear Seinfeld down instead of lifting Palestine up.
What a terrible thing to say, not just about Palestinians, but about Jews. No, I know tons of Jews.
I wouldn't call it a one-to-one comparison, but not too long ago in this stream, they were extremely concerned about people raising the temperature because it'll only cause more problems, and that's all this segment is really for.
Bunch of savages! It's like one of the most racist guys in America. I guess he's a Jewish supremacist. Apparently Jerry Seinfeld's parents were probably monsters and they taught him to hate Palestinians.
Next, the UK ambassador to America was fired because his close ties to Jeffrey Epstein were revealed, and so Cenk assumes that he was appointed to be controlled by Israel.
Because him being involved in the Epstein case wasn't the bug, it was the feature. They picked him because they knew that he could be trusted to do right by a certain country. And that country is not Great Britain, and it is not America.
But it's certainly not Chinese.
Yeah.
Then for some reason we give a shit about a right-wing guy named Rabbi Shmuley trying to solicit donations off of Charlie Kirk's death.
The dildo business isn't bringing in the money.
I just want to be clear, they're kosher dildos.
Oh, okay. I mean, look, I have no problem with the sale of dildos if that's what you're into.
Who sells kosher dildos and defends genocides?
Listen,
yeah.
People need dildos, okay? People need dildos, including religious people who are only kosher. No judgment on that.
Yeah.
But
my God, if that was their only issue, that would be amazing.
Senator John Kennedy decided to be a creepy old guy in his foghorn leghorn voice towards Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, calling her attractive and ethnic.
This fake Elmer Fudd accent real thick.
I put some lube on and got him on his knees. This was my ass. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It will fit my favorite dildo. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life.
During this, Cenk and Anna completely gloss over a moment where Sean Hannity references Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas.
Your friend Pocahontas.
And Cenk uses the moment to self-aggrandize about helping Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez win her election.
At the beginning of AOC, I was there. So one of the founders of Just Democrats, we featured her on 34 times on the Young Turks before a primary win, more than the rest of the media combined.
Which unintentionally validates Kennedy's criticism, the non-creepy part, that said she was a creation of the media.
In fact, we couldn't get the media to talk about her during the primary because you hate outsiders, you're elitist pricks.
Okay, this irks me. A PAC founded by a media owner funded her and provided her time on his show, and as a result, she's in Congress. That's not a critique of AOC's authenticity. I'm not going to look up clips from 7-8 years ago to figure that out. But then Cenk does what I think is the best John Kennedy impersonation I've ever seen.
And then a reporter walks in, he's like, oh, yeah, well, we love it. Oh, I'm the average guy. Oil companies at 18 billion.
And finally, Cenk interviews Peter Beinart, who wrote a book about being Jewish while Israel commits genocide in Gaza, which is a topic I think is worth exploring by someone besides him. And that's day one.
That was day one.
Now part of the donor class. Junk yogurt. Isn't this the guy whose grandparents were first cousins?
Wow. Thanks for the 10 euros, Tash Gordon. I really appreciate that. Let's do some super chats. The goal ends in 23 minutes, guys. 23 minutes to do 8 more super chats. Watch out. Eric Winters, thanks to the tier 2 sub. Red Fox the Poser, thanks to the $5. Multiple people helped her once they realized she was hurt. The full clip of people helping is almost never shared. Yeah, because the way that she was stabbed, obviously, and fell, you might not have noticed, known exactly what the fuck was going on. Yeah. Bro, what the fuck? Okay. Jacob, thanks for the $5. Kirk wasn't far right. Having flashbacks to him meeting a German and busting out fluent German to reference a bit of obscure Nazi history. Barabbas, thanks to $2. I don't know. True. Soupy Cask, thanks to $4.99. In America, we have Islamophobia, but I'm always shocked by Euro-Islamophobia. Europeans seem genuinely paranoid and hateful towards Muslims in Europe. Yeah, we have a pretty big problem here. I think the 2015 era didn't really work out that well for us. I think people got very mind-fucked by a lot of those attacks. But, yeah, not good. Gavin Eidman, thanks for the tier 1 sub. Hello, Mr. Loner. Fast and Bulbous, thanks for the $5. You didn't skip it. Here's another 5. Thank you so much. Wow, soy. 8 more to go, guys. 8 more. 8 more.
Action!
Today, the FBI arrests someone who was planning to murder journalists who he considered the enemy of the people. Gee, I wonder where he got that idea. Calling them the enemy of the people encourages violence against them. Every time he puts out a tweet saying enemy of the people, he increases the percentage chance that somebody at the New York Times is going to get killed.
Donald Trump will go after any type of medium, late night, comedy show. Donald Trump wanted to look into SNL because...
Let's see here. Let's go through the list. The problem with with this is that some entries on Wiki and elsewhere, they sometimes call an attack on Israel, like they call a West Bank attack an attack on Israel, or they'll say civilian, but they won't mention that it was like a settler, even though that's like where the dispute is, right? About who they were targeting. Let's see here. This is actually quite interesting. It's about the origin of the Al-Qassam brigades. Over time, however, the structure and responsibilities of Hamas's overt and covert wings developed to accommodate the changing environment in which the group found itself. In 1987, Hamas's military cells began to carry out their first attacks targeting Israelis. At this point, Israeli collaborators within Palestinian society became the primary obstacle to Hamas's operations. So the Majd, acronym for Majmuat Jihad Odawa, or the Holy War and Sermonizing Group, was created to serve as the strike force of the one-year-old Jihaz Amman security branch. Its role was to discover and deal with Palestinians suspected of helping Israel. Founded in 1982, 5 years before the official founding of Hamas, the Al-Mujahideen Al-Philistinin was entrusted with the responsibility of procuring weapons. After the uprising broke out, this group was in charge of executing, shooting, and bombing attacks as well. In 1991, both the Majid and Mujahideen Philistinun Okay, Philistine. Okay. Were incorporated into a reorganized Hamas military wing under the name Izz al-Din al-Qassam Brigades. The first Qassam Brigade cell, named for a Muslim Brotherhood leader killed in action against British forces in 1935, was established by Zakaria, what a name, Walid Akal, then head of the Hamas military wing in Gaza. The Qassam Brigades continued the alleged duties of kidnapping and murdering suspected collaborators, but soon branched out into targeting Israeli civilians. In December 91, it carried out the first terrorist attack against an Israeli civilian, murdering Doron Shorshan, an Israeli resident of the Kfar Darom settlement in Gaza. So this is a settler, 91. This attack marked a turning point in the modus operandi of Hamas and set the group on the road toward the spectacular and indiscriminate suicide bombings and other attacks for which it is well known. Despite having rounded up the terrorist corner and established a full terrorist wing, it still took time for the group to develop capabilities equal to its intent. The evolutionary development of Hamas's terrorist tactics led to the group's first suicide car bomb attack on April 16, 1993, when the Qassam Brigades claimed responsibility for a blast outside a roadside cafeteria near the Mehola settlement in the West Bank. Though the car bomb killed only the driver and an Arab worker, the bomber had pulled up alongside two egged buses, specifically targeting Israeli civilians. Luckily, for them, most of the 50 or so passengers had left the buses and were mingling around the service counter when the explosion detonated, ripping through the two buses and setting them on fire. A year later, on April 94, this is after the Goldstein massacre, okay? April 94, Hamas carried out its first successful suicide car bomb attack in Israel proper when a car packed with nearly 400 pounds of explosives detonated beside a bus picking up students in the Israeli town of Afula. Afula is actually also one of the first villages or settlements where there was conflict between, it was evictions actually. It was one of the first places where there was evictions of locals by an Israeli, by a Zionist purchase. 40 miles northwest of Jerusalem, 8 people, mostly teenagers, were killed and over 40 others were wounded in the attack, which was perpetrated by a Palestinian from the West Bank. Here they talk about other attacks outside of suicide bombings, because I know suicide bombings, this is the type, this is the timeline. Watch overzealous takedown of your stupid ass. Okay. Give me a link. Let's go. Where did the person go? Did they get banned? The fuck? Okay. I didn't even know it was mentioned in those videos. The fuck? Okay. Best known for suicide bombing attacks, February 89 to March 2000. Hamas carried at least 27 attacks, including 12 suicide bombings. Yeah, so what are the other ones? What are the other 15? 185 deaths. Did they not list them? Qassam rockets, that was 2001. Small-scale attacks, abductions, 52 suicide attacks, 2004. They don't mention if there were any other non-suicide bombing attacks but in the 90s. That's what I'm trying to find out. What's the footnote? Number 10. Oh, is this the thing where the footnotes are all at the end? Wonderful. Beautiful. That makes me so happy. Oh. Remember, mods, if there are people who want to come in to fucking antagonize, you don't need to ban them right away because they might want to yap. They might want to yap. Oh fuck, what page was it on? Shit. Number 10. Database of attacks compiled by author. Dude! But where's his database? What the fuck? Does he not tell you where his database is? The bastard. Oh well, whatever.
They make fun of him. If I, in some alternate universe, were a right-winger who had supported Trump in the election, at this very moment, I would be deeply embarrassed.
And what does he do? Like all cowards, he says, well, I don't want to get into the fight, right? I mean, I got bone spurs. Oh, I got bone spurs. And incredibly thin skin, so I can't go into any fight. But you know what? Somebody should do something about the enemy of the people. And he encourages other people to take actions that are going to lead to violence. If you don't know calling someone the enemy of the people, especially when you're the president of the United States, encourages violence, either you're totally lying, you know it encourages violence, and you're hoping somebody gets hurt at the New York Times, or you're the dumbest person in America. So here we are, another right-wing terrorist targeting journalists and liberals because he thought they were against Trump. Is it connected to his tweets? Goddamn right it is.
All right, time for day 2.
Anna, before we get started, how are you doing?
Don't ask me that because not good, but let's just move on. I'm just really sad at like where the country is right now. You know, what's happening in the Middle East, obviously, I've been worried about that, but it does break my heart that some of the most prominent streamers, content creators have been putting out.
Wait, there's not a new video. There's not a new video by this guy. Where is it? 4 days ago. Did he actually say something about me? I didn't even know I was mentioned. As much of a propagandist fucking hack dipshit this guy is, he does make the effort. Like he puts his sources up, even if he misrepresents them or relies on poor information. We got Tuton to admit this guy was being anti-Semitic, which was quite funny, with his recalling of Jewish history. Maybe he's just got a video clip of me? I don't see any box. Or loners. Oh no. Maybe it's just because it's like Zionist in general, that person was saying that. Maybe I'll make a video out of that one. Getting that concession. That'd be quite fun. I don't know. I don't even see my face anywhere here. It's just, maybe it's like a flash, or maybe there's like one clip where I say something. Fuck knows, man. Whatever. Big deal.
Stuff out that I don't know where I belong, has not called for continued violence against the right.
So what changed between foreshadowing and today?
I'm an enormous believer that the radicals do not represent the left or the right.
More both sidesing. Okie dokie.
It really didn't take long for members of the Trump administration to exploit the murder of Charlie Kirk to essentially roll back rights of Americans under this guise of fighting terrorism.
How are you going to both sides of this one, Anna?
I am personally disgusted with the celebrations of Charlie Kirk's murder.
Yeah.
You know, years ago, I remember covering a story about Turning Point USA and how they literally had published a list of professors for people to target. But I do think we need to have some sort of regulation that prevents doxing from happening. But see, that would be, you know, trying to find a reasonable solution to an ongoing problem that I've seen on both the left and the right.
I disagree, but we should do something, but not about that specifically, a different problem that they aren't trying to address.
But that's not what Stephen Miller and the Trump administration are interested in doing here.
Now, whether you believe him or not, Charlie Kirk's #1 issue was free speech. You could say, hey, you know, I found instances where he was hypocritical.
This has me wondering, would voting qualify as an act of speech if it's done anonymously, but it's taken as the voice of the people and the selection of their leadership? That might be a question for the philosophers, but January 6th definitely proves that both Trump and Kirk do not care about what people's opinions actually are if they're willing to subvert them.
I've heard people constantly say they're disgusted by the celebration of Kirk's death, but I haven't seen much celebrating. What am I missing? Because it's all on TikTok and small Twitter accounts, or maybe even some like big tanky ones, but no one who has any institutional power in the United States. Like, that's the thing. That's why they live by this constant double standards. Like, people who are right-leaning will basically take their own president and their own politicians, their own party, their own activists, and their own high-profile media figures, and equate that to just any random cunt they can find online. Like, it would not be untoward for someone on a Piers Morgan show or Fox or wherever else to say, yeah, I think Trump should condemn violence. Trump should be condemning, the president of the United States should be condemning violence. And then they would be turning back around on that person to say that they should condemn like a clip from me making a joke about it, right? Like, they would do that. They would do that. I'm not even American and they would do that.
Own ends.
But it doesn't matter. He wanted his legacy to be free speech. The right wing believed that his legacy is free speech.
I don't think that's how that works. Does George Bush's legacy get to be his time as a painter?
Ran 2 elections on that, 2020 and 2024.
Source? Please?
But now you're
Chat,
in power.
the goal is 5 off 10 minutes. 5 off the goal in 10 minutes. You can do it. Chop, chop. That's how I solicit donations in this chat. You can either give a teal or above super chat, $5 or more to contribute to the goal. You can get $10 or more for TTS, or you can become a member. Or you can like the stream, which doesn't cost you anything. Thank you so much. Wow.
And all of a sudden, we're going to cancel people?
No, it's not canceling someone when you bring the weight of the federal government down on someone. That's a fair bit more. It's a violation of your constitutional and civil rights.
This is exactly how you lose your freedom. And then if the Democrats get back in charge, then the 2 sides will flip. And then the right will go, no free speech, no cancel culture. And the left will go back to,
Wrong with the Democrats go and use the FCC to pressure someone into making a change in their company. It's crazy, whatever.
More free speech.
You can't even improvise what the realistic expectation of a Democratic administration curtailing free speech would look like.
I never thought I would ever fear the loss of our liberal democracy, but for the first time ever, I'm actually fearful of that. I really am.
Wild to admit this when that's what everyone was talking about prior to the election and you didn't take it seriously.
You know, I laughed about it. How laughable
Sev, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Let's go.
Is it to think
4 out of 10. 4 out of 4 left. 4 to go. Hey, look at these fucking. Oh, this was so embarrassing, man. Look at this. Wasn't there one guy who fell? He fell off the wall trying to climb it.
that Americans would want to be ruled by a monarchy. And the whole point of a liberal democracy is to allow you to articulate your arguments, make a case for your beliefs.
Wow, it would be really surprising if Donald Trump made it clear way before the election that he wasn't a fan of liberal democracy.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
whatever you might think about Charlie Kirk, he provided a platform for people to do that.
Cenk said when you die, you don't become an angel, but they are certainly doing the work to rewrite what Kirk's actual job was. The entire point of college campus debates was to position media-trained conservatives against inexperienced students to create an image of intelligence and superiority. The point wasn't to exchange ideas, it was to have people offer themselves as a metaphorical sacrifice to the discourse.
And so people say, well, he was trying to influence people in the wrong direction. That's right. That's why we're here trying to influence people in the right direction. And that's called America.
I kind of agree with that, actually. When people are acting in good faith.
The question, is the FCC beholden to the First Amendment? Well, as per the Supreme Court decision, it's not about the FCC in particular. It's about the government. It's about this. It's a 9-0 actually Supreme Court decision, arguing that the First Amendment prohibits government officials from relying on the threat of invoking legal sanctions and other means of coercion, which was that Trump's appointed head of the FCC going to Benny Johnson, of all people, the paid Russian dipshit, the Russian paid dipshit, and saying that, listen, guys, Jimmy Kimmel, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. That's where that came in. Government official using a mean of coercion to achieve the suppression of disfavored speech. Sev, thanks for the other 15. And the other 15, thank you so much. And Churro Bandit, thanks for the super chat. Hey, Boxman, hope you're doing okay. I am. Thank you so much. And Barabbas, thanks for the $5. Who do you think you are, Rabbi Shmuley? Yes, I need all the security in the world. Oh, God. How is this crowdfunder going? The Rabbi Shmuley security drive. How's that going? Let's do a new goal, by the way. 3 more hours. New goal. Reset the super chat. Fuck, Devil missed it, but thank you so much.
Coming in while goal not active.
Oh, you did it on purpose. What a bastard. Thanks for the 1999, the Devil. I really appreciate that. Rabbi Shmuley Security Fund. No, I've not been watching the new South Parks. I'm not really caught up to it. Oh yeah, the GoFundMe. Rabbi Shmuley launched a GoFundMe after Charlie Kirk's death to solicit donations. He tried to make money off of Charlie Kirk's death, saying he needs more security. 816 raised. Thank God it's so fucking low. 1%. Thank God that's fucking freak. And even some of the donos, don't make Charlie Kirk's death about you. If this was a joke, it's a bad one. Could someone hack into his social media and shut it down? Why are people donating to fucking... What a fucking loser. Disgusting worm. Oh, God. ZJM, thanks for the 10 gifted subs. That's so kind of you. 10 gifties. 10 bangers.
And Charlie Kirk was not.
You fight back with words, you fight back politically, you fight back with rhetoric, and if anyone on the right actually meant anything about freedom of speech that they said, they would be 100% opposed to what Stephen Miller just said.
Okay, but they're not. Not even Charlie Kirk, because Kirk supported Trump and Trump supported Miller, and after Trump brought on Miller, he continued to support him. This isn't difficult. It's like you say, words and actions. And now we get to a group of right-wing trolls that decided to create a website for harassing people that made light of Charlie Kirk's death. I'm actually kind of amazed at what their response is, starting with, they learned it from the left.
Right-wing activists and some politicians are on a bit of a witch hunt. And I think some of the behavior that we saw, beginning in 2020, if anything, I would say that the right is learning from those tactics and now going on a witch hunt against Charlie Kirk's critics.
Where did you get this? Who taught you how to use this thing?
You, all right? I learned from watching you.
Just be careful about what you're posting online. Be thoughtful about what you're putting out there.
That is actually good advice.
Oh, well, why don't you condemn Trump for refusing to turn the temperature down? Listen, I have accepted a long time ago that Donald Trump is never going to be a leader in regard to having cooler heads prevail so things don't kind of spiral out of control where we have even more violence.
Why have you accepted that?
But even if Biden or Kamala Harris said it, they wouldn't listen anyway.
Right now, Americans are struggling, regardless of where they stand on the political aisle, okay?
It's an explanation to say that people under increased stress act out more, but that shouldn't be touted as an excuse for people choosing to harass someone, like it's the equivalent.
You watch the BE video, so you don't have to. And this is the clip Fantana replied to, and he has a section about Star. He's going after Stardust because he's a fucking bully. Yeah, nice one. Cowardly bully fuck. Yeah, okay, whatever. So he's just rehashing. Bit lazy.
Of taking a kickboxing class.
And what are the political elite doing right now? They are directing our ire at one another.
No, only one side is doing that. And then to both sides, Anna brings up the 2022 mass shooting in Buffalo, New York by a white supremacist.
Go into a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, and gun down 10 Black Americans. That was politically motivated violence. Can we please stop pretending like there isn't a problem in this country on both sides? There is a problem right now. There is. There just is.
We've been saying on this show, stop calling all Trump voters racist.
Trump supporters. Not all racist, but all supporters of racists.
No one isn't doing nuance anymore at all.
No nuance.
We just got both
sides.
Let's
both sides when it's so clear that the majority of terror attacks by every institution, even by studies that the fucking DHS, Department of Homeland Security in America, had to take it off their website because it just made them look so fucking stupid compared to what they were saying in the media. Right-wingers do most of the terrorism in the United States. Sorry. Just true. Just a fact. There's no getting around it.
Saying, nope, I'm going to find the most extreme person on that side and make them the poster child.
All the most extreme people on the right currently have control of the
federal... They're massive pygmies, yeah. They're complete fucking MAGA pygmies. It's disgusting.
Government jank. Jank reads a viewer comment.
Israel's a major player in the cancel culture. They're also a significant cause of the desensitization online. They've blurred all standards for morality, humanity, respect, integrity. That's what I call the Israelification of the world, which is if you're strong and powerful, you don't have to follow the law, you don't have to follow morality, and call it self-defense and laugh.
The word you're looking for is Russification. Then they touch on rumors about Kash Patel feuding with Pam Bondi and potentially getting ousted as FBI director.
Multiple sources also told Fox that Patel was forcibly instructed not to speak, adding that investigators had still not identified a suspect.
Next up is Florida Congressman Brian Mast putting up a bill that would allow Secretary of State Marco Rubio to revoke someone's passport if they're critical of Israel.
A man, by the way, who showed up to the halls of Congress wearing an IDF uniform just kind of gives you a sense of how much control this foreign government has over our own lawmakers. And it might have to do something with just how much money they take from the Israel lobby, which is quite a bit.
Representative Mast is not a U.S. representative. He served in the IDF.
Mast did not serve in the IDF. He did volunteer work packing medical kits. It's an important distinction. Mast lost both his legs in Afghanistan in 2010.
ZJM, thanks to 10 gifted subs. Thank you so much.
He would not have been able to serve in an official capacity as a soldier. But that's how he got the uniform he wore in 2023 after the October 7th attacks.
American taxpayers to give to
I did not know that guy was incapacitated. Okay.
Country that Representative Mast actually loves, which is Israel.
Brian Mast is an evangelical Christian. That's why he likes Israel.
However, I want to kind of get to the root of something that I see as a huge problem in this country, namely the ability of government officials to slap the label of terrorist onto pretty much anyone. How do you even determine what terrorist is? Like, what is the definition? What are the guidelines that government officials would be using to designate someone as a terrorist? Well, is super vague and can be applied pretty generously to anyone, including someone who's been forcibly kidnapped by a guerrilla group and, is now deemed a supporter of terrorism because of the fact that she was forced to cook and clean for that group. It's crazy, absolutely insane.
In the middle of this super serious story, the idea of her serving gorillas as in apes rather than militants. Okay, if you're aiding and abetting gorillas or orangutans.
We were so close to decent coverage of one story.
No, we have a First Amendment. As much as Israel and the corrupt U.S. politicians who serve Israel might hate that.
But all that comfortably leads into more Israel news.
Israel have to do with the First Amendment, man. What the fuck?
Basically just an excuse to, how do I put this? Well, you saw the clip earlier.
The biggest White House attacks and the biggest government attacks on First Amendment recently have been because of their own white Christian guy getting killed because of Charlie Kirk. That's their biggest attacks on First Amendment we've seen since they came into office, really. Okay.
So let's just say, embrace their inner Fuentes.
When I heard TikTok update their terms of service to no longer allow violent/gory videos, I thought, there it is.
Mahmoud Khalil is probably one, though. Yeah, that's true.
There's the Israeli play in all of this. They're going to take not only Kirk's death down, but all the Gaza/West Bank deaths as well. The beginning of the new week, that's it. All the Israeli forces inside the U.S. government and inside social media attacking.
Well, unfortunately, the United States is currently in bed with savage terrorists, and that is the current government of Israel. But the annexation of the West Bank, the annexation of land in Syria following the fall of Bashar al-Assad.
I was technically incorrect in my Hassan video. And despite bombing Syria, the IDF has actively removed Israelis who have tried to set up settlements across the border. While Israel hasn't allowed civilians to settle in regions of the Golan Heights past the border, after the fall of Assad, the IDF expanded their buffer zone, which, while questionably legal, makes sense given that Syria had just opposed their government and wasn't fully capable of enforcing a new stability. What Anna is describing makes it sound like they set up an entirely new West Bank-style settlement, and while that cannot be completely ruled out in the future and should be criticized then, there's no evidence that the Israeli government wants that to happen now.
This is an expansionist, colonial settler program, the Greater Israel Project, and anyone trying to convince you otherwise.
Greater Israel Project that's pulled all the way out of Lebanon, barring 5 hilltops. But maybe they'll put a high-rise on one of those hills, and then that'll look really stupid. Shit.
Is lying to you.
Greater Israel isn't a thing. It won't ever be a thing. It cannot ever reasonably be a thing. If you want to talk about expansion in Gaza and the West Bank, by all means criticize it, condemn it, call the conditions an apartheid. But like I said last time, Greater Israel is taking land they can't hold with forces they don't have, with aid they won't get.
This is about aiding and abetting Israel's empire building.
To be fair to Trump, he did try hard to get the peace in Ukraine.
Trump tried to get peace? What?
And I believe he tried in Gaza.
Yeah, Trump Gaza, #1. That's what that means, right?
I love it.
Right?
But that all changed after Netanyahu's last visit. We don't know what happened there, but Trump went from challenging them.
They want Egypt, yes. They want land that they've never occupied. They want land that they have occupied and then given back. They want land that they've taken settlers out of and evicted them from. And they want land that they've occupied several times and pulled back. Yeah, it's just so fucking mental. Absolutely mental. ZJM, thanks for the 10 gifted subs. 30 total now, you absolute boss. My God. Wow.
Doing the same exact obedient lapdog routine as Joe Biden.
I gave them too much credit yesterday.
Oh, no.
So when they say all of Hamas has to surrender, that is a purposely undoable goal.
I mean, this technically could be correct. Given the religious fanaticism and the number of people they've already forced in front of gunfire, it's hard to say whether you could actually get them to surrender.
How do they surrender? Do a couple of hundred people, a couple of thousand people come out of the tunnels dressed in their Hamas garb? And no one even knows what it means to surrender. Do they just kill themselves? Do they turn themselves into Israeli authorities?
God, yeah, I have no idea. What does it look like when a military surrenders? I never in my life. It's not as if that's happened a billion times in human history. What would they do? Is surrender when you all kill yourself? Why is he pretending? He should know, right? Surrender is actually, in fact, what a lot of Armenians did before they were genocided. Like, oh God.
The whole point of Israel was supposed to be a safe haven for Jews. How does endless war equal safe haven? It doesn't. This isn't about that. This is about greater Israel. And now we are enslaved here in America, saying, open up your wallets. Let's go. Israel wants your money. And if you think you have freedom in America, you have freedom with an asterisk. Except your entire government will work for Israel. And that doesn't apply to everybody in the Trump administration. Before Trump got neutered, he was actually defying Israel time to time. Steve Witkoff was actually trying to do real peace negotiations.
Why do you think these things?
And then he's going to pursue further military action, of course, fought by United States soldiers in Iran. I mean, the blueprint and the plans are being drawn up for that as we speak.
Please tell me you have a source for that.
And to be honest with you, Cenk, one of the biggest black pills I have ever swallowed in my life is the realization that our government, they're supporting the bad guys.
So to summarize, the black pill was that this government is helping Israel. None of the other stuff, just Israel. It's always Israel. Not cutting USAID, not blowing up our relationship with international allies, not ICE arrests and deportation to CCOT, not even the fact that half the country still supports Trump in the face of all the damage he's done that has killed and traumatized more people between his first and second administration than Israel. Excuse me if I find this a little disingenuous.
They are stealing American resources, depriving American taxpayers of the resources we so desperately need in order to aid and abet the terrorists.
Thank you for the $19.99, the devil. You're so generous. What a guy. What a boss. What a handler. I'm so tempted to do a bait. I don't know if I should do it. I feel like the top of my Twitter feed is actually quite nice looking now. I think it's quite good. Maybe tomorrow. I'm gonna just throw out like a wow, you might not have caught the stream, but thank you so much for the anonymous $7,000 donation on PayPal, whoever you were. Thank you. I don't know. I kind of want to. That might be a good meme. Who knows? Kind of want to throw that in there at some point.
Terroristic regime in Israel.
I'll say the same things I've said before. Criticize Israel, call it a settler colonial apartheid state. By itself, I can disagree with the verbiage and still recognize we can be on the same side of trying to achieve peace and equality. But this isn't that. It makes those goals harder because it both expands the necessary action beyond what's reasonable and it obfuscates the reality.
They've enslaved the Palestinians for the last 58 years. They say, oh, look, they're going to try to kill Jews, not just in Israel, but across the world. The Palestinians, all they ever did was take in people that had suffered genocide and Holocaust. They took in the Armenians from the Armenian genocide. They took in Jews from the Holocaust.
I'm not rehashing.
Their leaders tried to stop Jewish immigration all the way from the late 1800s until the 48 war. They always tried to stop Jewish immigration. Like, what are you talking about, Cenk? What are you talking about?
Israel-Palestine history. This is incorrect. Part of the problem during the Holocaust was that immigration to mandatory Palestine was restricted to appease the Arab population. And again, he undermines himself with more complaints about our institution that's busy with people of the Levant.
So the people in Washington take money from the Israeli lobby. They're corrupt, period. There is no other reason they support Israel other than the fact that they're crooks and they work for a different country. And by the way, if you're allowed to murder people in an allied country like Qatar, let alone any other country, that also means you're allowed to murder in America. Now, you think they're not going to do it? They've already killed 10 Americans since 2022 in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. And what has our government done? Thank you, sir. May we have another, sir? The American citizens are useless. Who cares about them? Murder away. No consequences, none. Sir, how much more money would you like, sir? In reality, it's one of the worst governments that is creating more conflict than any other government on planet Earth.
Israel is causing more conflict than any other country on Earth. Really?
Period. I don't see North Korea attacking 6 of its neighbors.
There are North Korean soldiers in Ukraine, missile launches into South Korean airspace and waters, cyber attacks and crypto scams. Oh, no. What do you think their military is for?
Israel's just creating future terrorists. Violence begets violence. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're creating future terrorists, but they're also the present day terrorists.
Can we just recognize that the motivating factors for terrorism are not exclusively poverty or having violence inflicted on you? This is extremely reductive. Osama bin Laden came from a wealthy family. Ted Kaczynski was a math prodigy and assistant professor at Berkeley. The leaders of Hamas hoarded billions of dollars intended as aid for Palestinians in Gaza. I don't bring this up.
Is there any like original, because people need to be so careful with this. You know how like a claim can get repeated over and over and over again by so many people that you get this like massive bias of certainty, even though a lot of it can actually just be from the same basic source, right? Is there any, what's the evidence that these Hamas guys have billions in their bank accounts in Qatar? Is there any original source for that shows it, or? I haven't really looked. I just see it. It's like a truism, you know, but we don't really know if it's actually true. Like,
to say that it means all the people who would be in Hamas are therefore instantly valid targets, or that Cenk is even necessarily implying that. Just that the motivations behind terrorism are ideological commitments, not just circumstances.
If we have time, I guess we'll talk about how pathetic Hakeem Jeffries is.
The next story is about how Trump used the military to blow up a Venezuelan boat he says was trafficking drugs, but provides no evidence about it. Anna surmises that Trump is planning a regime change in Venezuela.
Nice.
And that would be yet another war that Donald Trump would be dragging the United States military into at a time when war is breaking out all over the Middle East because of us aiding and abetting Israel.
Because they've gone in so hard on Israel controlling the United States, I feel obligated to point out that America deciding to go to war with Venezuela for oil, as they imply Trump wants, completely contradicts that. Either Israel wants the United States to go to war with Iran, or oil companies want to go to war with Venezuela, and our army isn't big enough to do both. Pick one.
And then, of course, when it comes to our military arsenal, there have been reports about how that arsenal is depleted because we're, of course, providing weapons to Ukraine, weapons to Israel. The list goes on and on.
In what world is this believable on its face?
And remember, he tried to start a war with Venezuela last time he was president.
Then why did you think he would cut defense spending after the election?
Establishment 101. Neocon 101.
Donor class 101.
That this is just what Republicans and neocons do.
This is an epic disaster. This isn't America. This is ugliness done on behalf of...
Well, that was yet another piece of evidence that this is the kayfabe presidency, wrestling theater.
Is Venezuela the largest exporter of drugs in the region? Not even close. So, look, I don't want to give them ideas about Mexico or Colombia, but does Colombia export more drugs than Venezuela? Yes.
Oh my God, it's about immigration. Crime in Venezuela sends people seeking asylum and refuge to America, and the people in America then hear about Venezuelan immigrants taking over Colorado high-rises that you reported on. Venezuela doesn't need to export them.
What did he say?
On immigrants taking over Colorado high.
Local news in Colorado has absolutely confirmed Venezuelan gangs took over apartment buildings in Aurora, including a report by a legal team hired by the property owners. So why are the local authorities ceding U.S. territory to foreign gangs? Why haven't the cops gone in already? Okay. Did he forget?
Rises that you reported on. Venezuela doesn't need to export the most drugs. They just need to be seen as the most prominent country causing the immigration crisis.
It ain't about drugs. It's about oil. So there's no question about that. I can't believe our Secretary of Defense is a weekend Fox host.
Agreed.
Like, this is a joke, man. It's especially sickening, guys, because they constantly use our troops as sitting ducks. They put them in the middle of the Middle East. Oh, please, Iran attack them, please. So we can wipe out the Iranian regime and do regime change like Israel ordered us to.
Believe it or not, Iran isn't dumb enough to do that, so we're not stupid enough to offer the opportunity. The last time Iran struck the U.S. military
they warned
under
everyone so they could fuck off.
Trump, we notably did not do any regime change for Israel. And then we go to Brian Kilmeade saying he wants to euthanize the homeless.
Brian, what?
He apologized.
I don't care.
He still sucks. Cenk brings up someone homeless that he helped out. That's genuinely nice. I'm glad he did that.
I've got a loved one who had schizophrenia. And by the way, he's better now. Brian, we didn't have to kill him.
And lastly, we come to Cenk's interview.
I got a fever. And the only prescription is
Zachary Karabal. All right.
Jesus. They do cover a lot, though.
action.
A lot more than streamers. Havara agreement, Jesus.
All right, guys. So I'm going to tell you about how Tucker Carlson's trying to get every other reporter to not talk about the good economy. This video is sponsored by aspiration.com/TYT. Tucker went on air Friday night to bully Jim Cramer from CNBC. Cramer said a rare, honest thing. So obviously, Tucker Carlson's furious about that. So he said this is the best economy he's ever seen. Unemployment claims are at a 52-year low, but the rest of mainstream media totally followed and has actually doubled down and poured fuel all over that fire. They took a really hot economy and said it's a really bad thing. And you don't want to give credit to a good economy because they actually passed bills that help American voters. Oh, that coronavirus relief bill mainly went to you guys. Oh, so Tucker Carlson comes in and he's going to bully him, because he doesn't want any other reporter saying the thing that is true. Part of how Fox News drives the agenda. So he knows that if he says outrageous and awful things about Jim Cramer, everybody will hear it and report it because they'll be shocked and chagrined, like, oh no, there's terrible Tucker Carlson attacking us again, to get the media attention that he wants, right? But he's getting that attention to direct it towards what? To direct it towards you better not say anywhere on television that the economy is doing well. Now, can he bully the rest of the media that way? Of course he can.
Tonight, I'll also be on News Nation with Chris Cuomo debating the Israel issue. Is it a genocide or not? I'm also going to do a special live show with Tucker Carlson.
That seemed really hard to get out. I wonder why.
And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking.
First thing out the gate, the UN.
Where's the cackle? Where's the cackle? Charlie Kirk, of all people, really? That's your anti-Israel guy. That's the guy who went too far against the Jewish state. That's so fucking mental, man, that he would say that. And no one on the right made anything out of it. No one made anything of it. It's just, okay, that's just our Tucker. It's just what he does. Oh, it's fucking mental. Oh.
Mission on Gaza has come out and said that Israel is committing a genocide in their report.
Commission had actually put out a report earlier that found Israel had committed war crimes against humanity.
I've got my own issues with the report, but none are substantive enough at the moment to call out in any meaningful way. I'm sure there are people on YouTube who'll go into more detail with research if you're curious, but for our purposes, let's just accept their determination.
I have no idea who he's referring to there.
You better not call it a genocide. Well, they did anyway. The only three groups left on Israel's side is Israel's hard right wing. Then the second group is Western leaders, and the third group is Western media. Can a country, just with controlling Western leaders and media, be able to pull off a genocide and totally get away with it?
If it's just money, Israel isn't the richest country in the world. It's not even the richest country in the region. You don't have to do this whole song and dance. If America's government is for sale, why is Israel the only one who seems to...
Saudi has a shit ton of money in U.S. politics.
...be trying to buy it.
Can we get the entire world to shut up and follow our orders?
But don't hate Israelis, though. Meaning the Israeli government. Don't hate the Israeli government. Don't hate the IDF.
Another interesting slip.
It's a live-streamed genocide. But don't speak out about it.
You know all those jokes about right-wing media pundits saying that they're being silenced in the books they're busy promoting on big media tours? I was just thinking about that for no reason.
They're literally on the side of being pro-genocide.
A quick word about calling people pro-genocide. It's a vacuous accusal. Like, they brought this back around to Bush. It's the exact same "you want the terrorists to win" argument we heard in the mid-2000s. It's an insult intended to shut down argument that isn't even reserved for the people who say, actually, I like the IDF killing all these people. You would be considered pro-genocide for thinking, the IDF isn't doing a good job, Netanyahu has too many conflicts of interest to effectively prosecute this war, the war crimes themselves are unconscionable, withholding aid is genocidal, but Hamas has been an ineffective and tyrannical government, and they do need to be deposed militarily if they can't be removed democratically. Like, what is the actual position here if your main cause is Israel bad and not Palestinians good? Because it's certainly not the fighting needs to stop. It's the fighting has made me upset, and to me at least, that's the most selfish position you can have about this war. Prioritizing your feelings over someone else's survival. Cenk calls Kash Patel's response to Senate questioning Israeli.
They sound Israeli.
Not because Epstein is related to Israel, except for all the times you've strongly implied that he is. It's Israeli because it's obviously a lie.
I mean, they sound so absurd in their denial that it sounds like the Israeli government. You're saying, oh yeah, I'm being just like all the other administrations, just like our beloved Biden, our beloved Obama.
Just... the open-endedness of this stuff is what lends itself towards conspiratorial thinking. Not that these pieces of information don't come together in a pattern of egregious behavior to protect Epstein clients, but that framing it with why allows people to fill in their own answers to connect the dots.
But something happened following Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the United States, his meeting with Donald Trump. Donald Trump changed.
As the news media, it's your responsibility to frame things in a clear and concise way to provide cause and effect so that speculation doesn't get out of control.
Yeah.
What is Trump hiding?
Yeah, well, he's definitely hiding something. I genuinely don't know if he was a client or not, but...
You genuinely don't know. All the criticism of Kash Patel denying an Epstein list, and you don't know if Trump would be on it.
I mean, this is all like 1984 level propaganda. I mean, George Orwell...
It's the easiest conspiracy theory in the world. There are so many threads that you can pull at to make a conspiracy theory out of Epstein. It's the same with the Russia thing though as well, right? Like Russia and Epstein are both like, if they were anyone else, it's a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. It's such a like captivating, sexy, dark, mysterious story. Like Russia, you know, the remains of the Soviet Union and the Cold War, trying to influence American politics with hacking and emails and fucking cyber attacks and sending officials into the country, and something that kind of looks like coordination a little bit maybe, and not like zero contact between like WikiLeaks and people like Roger Stone talking about the timing of a WikiLeaks release to benefit Trump, and Trump saying to the Russians he wants them to get those 30,000 emails for him. Like, it's such a good conspiracy theory, but no one on this side of the internet cares about it. They're not interested in it because it's like something that would benefit liberals, I guess.
Was genius of geniuses.
That's not 1984 propaganda.
The former prime minister of Israel. The list goes on and on.
That's actually true. He's talking about Ehud Barak, prime minister in 1999.
The country's starting to get united on this issue, Epstein files. Maybe we can build off of it. Maybe we can't build off of it.
They think it's a Jewish conspiracy. You think it's an Israeli conspiracy. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that kind of unity.
If the Israelis ever hold Netanyahu accountable, it'll be a great day in world history. I wouldn't hold your breath, but it's not impossible.
So, help them? Like, you've just presented a clear through line to end the genocide, dissolve the Likud government, get the people on your side. Your entire thing has been about open debate. So try to convince them. You put more faith in MAGA to become liberal based on Epstein than you do Israelis to vote out Netanyahu.
When you hear commentary from the right about how they killed Charlie Kirk, what does they mean?
It means the left or the Jews, usually both.
One of the things that I asked before we found out what his motive was,
hell no,
is if it's the Groypers, should we hate all of them? And should we attack them and generalize about them? If it turns out it's the opposite, it's the left, should we hate them and attack them? And then when you ask that question, you begin to realize how absurd it is. It's one person. And that's kind of obvious once you think it through.
You don't need Charlie Kirk's murder to hate Groypers.
Terrorism is always the dumbest thing in the world. It's like it hasn't worked since 1948.
Oh my God, he's talking about the founding of Israel.
Among the conservatives who called out Bondi was Eric Erickson, who I think has actually been a pretty reasonable member on the right.
Marxist ideology insists that men are men and women are women.
I'm sure I disagree with him on a whole host of things, but he seems to have some actual moral values, seems to care about this country. President Trump makes comments like that. It communicates to me that he doesn't care about our Constitution. He doesn't care about what makes this country great.
I'm sorry, every time I hear a criticism of Donald Trump at this point, it's like that knee reflex test you get at a doctor's office where I just go, so why didn't you vote for Harris?
You did not vote for Donald Trump. You did not vote for Kamala Harris, correct?
Correct.
If she gets her way, every administration is going to change it. So when you've got a Republican in charge, it's going to be hate against right-wing individuals. When Democrats get in charge, nope, that's not hate anymore. Now hate is racism, sexism, etc.
What is this argument? Like, I agree that hate speech shouldn't be banned for the greater harm that government restrictions on speech can impose, but Cenk's example is that Dems would say that racism is bad, and Republicans would say that racism is good.
All right, so then that leads to how did the right wing react? We said we were against hate speech being classified as a crime. We're still against it, even when we were in charge. And I got to tell you, you got to give him credit for that.
Oh, Cenk, I really don't.
When you stay principled, even when you're in charge. I mean, we were so worried that they were not going to stick to principles. They were just going to go for raw power.
What?
What?
For them to say no to Pam Bondi, no to Trump on this, that's pretty great, guys.
No, it's not. It's really not. They push back because they know they don't have to actually do anything. They can just continue to support Trump, who in turn will do it anyway. Now we learn what Anna and Cenk's names mean.
Keeper of treasure.
Ooh.
Which, you know.
Sorry. Hashtag not sorry. Okay.
All right.
And as a lot of you know that have been with us for a while, Cenk means war.
After that, we go into Cenk's appearance on Piers Morgan opposite former TYT associate, Russian stooge, and soulless husk, Dave Rubin.
Wait, I never saw this one.
Think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be killed? Yes or no?
Of course not. What kind of asinine question is that?
The New York Times has uncovered some of the shady.
Oh, Dave. Fucking Dave Rubin. He's such a worm. His spine is a fucking noodle, man. Do you think he wanted to die? Oh, God, I don't know. Probably no. I'm going to give that a solid no on that one, maybe.
Business deals involving his family and his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff.
If you're wondering whether Cenk has anything to say about Witkoff when yesterday he said that he was really trying for Middle East peace, he does not.
I'm tired of Donald Trump suing the press every time they hurt his feelings. I've been smeared by the New York Times. This is not about defending them. This is about defending the press.
But make no mistake about it, this lawsuit that Trump is filing against the New York Times is meant to intimidate them and prevent them from reporting on what he might be doing in the Oval Office, what actions he might be engaging in that could be illegal or unethical. I hope they fight back.
You know what? Good enough. I call their coverage of this story decent reporting.
Hey.
And remember, it's even if you love Trump, the president isn't always going to be Trump. So next time a Democrat's in charge, oh, where do they get the crypto money from? Israel or Saudi Arabia or China or North Korea or ExxonMobil or Bob?
I retract my previous statement.
No.
Fuck. This one was a really high effort fucking video because obviously, yeah, I guess TYT, they put out so many, like, what, between like 6 and 10 videos a day. God, where are we even at now? We've still got at least half an hour to go. 35 minutes. Shit, man. Fuck. I need a bathroom break. For one, this is good though. Good performance. The video, by the way, if you want to go and give it a like and subscribe and all that, it's linked in it's pinned to the chat. It's pinned to the chat. And Conduit's also in this chat. So if you have any fucking questions for him or critiques, you want to call him a moron, whatever, we welcome all kinds. You can do it here. All right, be right back. Whoa, hey. Like the stream, it doesn't cost you anything. The gold does cost you, and it's only 1 out of 10. Get on it, prick.
So I've given this advice to Democrats and President Obama many times before. They never listen. Never agree with a Republican. They will only use it against you. During the election, the intelligence agencies come to President Obama and they say the Russians are trying to interfere in the election. It looks like they want to cause chaos. They're also against Hillary Clinton, and it appears they're in favor of Donald Trump. So what does Obama do? Instead of going out and telling everybody about that, he does what is the responsible thing to do. He calls in congressional leaders, including Republicans. And Mitch McConnell says, nothing. Don't you dare say that in public. If you say it, we'll say you're rigging the election in favor of Hillary Clinton. So Obama, being, of course, who he is, like, okay, I won't say it. So why do I bring it up today? Because Donald Trump, in his weird White House lawn discussion yesterday with the press, when asked about Russian collusion, said, oh, no, it's not me. It's Obama. In other words, because Obama listened to the Republicans and agreed with the Republicans not to tell the American people before the election that Russia was trying to help Trump, Trump now turns around and blames Obama for it. Never agree with a Republican. They will always use it against you. So Democrats, for God's sake, stop trying to look for stupid bipartisan compromises. The Republicans are not interested in compromises. How about since you're in the opposite party, you fight them instead?
We're over the hump. 2 days left. Hopefully the next couple of days are easy.
So joining us now is Ken Klippenstein.
Oh, fuck my cock.
I always love the fact that you're willing to publish things that other journalists or reporters are, for whatever reason, terrified to publish.
Yeah, Ken Klippenstein's Substack is super edgy. If you also believe yogurt is too spicy.
Oh, I'm saying it.
The conversation starts out mostly fine, talking about how the shooter was just an ordinary guy.
The whole thing just fell apart.
But when they get to broader politics,
the whole thing just fell apart. How often do you see Chuck Schumer getting up there and saying Donald Trump is just such an existential threat? When I see something like that, I think, okay, what is he not saying? He's not talking about other policy stuff.
You are both siding Chuck Schumer saying Trump is an existential threat and Trump using the military to blow up a Venezuelan boat, which Cenk and Anna talked about yesterday as a pretense for invading Venezuela.
I see it as a cop-out in a lot of ways and useful to them to just like ratchet up rhetoric and sound like, look, I'm doing all this really exciting stuff. Trump too, when he does these, when he blows up the boat. And so since he's not actually going to fix that in a systemic way, you've got to create this theater of look how tough I'm being, just like I was talking about with the Democrats.
Don't get upset at the person doing bad stuff. Get upset at the people calling it out for saying that it's bad.
Just ringing the alarm all the time. And some people are going to take that seriously.
I mean, that's the reason why I see this as like the kayfabe, like presidency. Nothing's really real, but it's exciting and it seems like something real is happening.
This isn't some profound understanding. This was happening during his first administration. Would you say the killing of Iranian General Soleimani was just kayfabe? There are dead people on a boat who you yourself said have not been identified nor confirmed as having committed any crime, extrajudicially killed in international waters, and you're comparing that to Chuck Schumer saying that's an emergency, in terms of there not being an actual emergency. This is the kind of stuff that makes me bristle when they talk about Gaza, because in every other circumstance they show that they do not care about people getting killed if it proves they can seem above it all.
Yeah, like the National Guard deployments. I oppose those, and I think that's bad just because it's corrosive to democratic attitudes to just see troops marching around. That being said, they're not going to do anything. This is a show.
I oppose it because it's doing something, not because it'll do something, except for all the stuff it's doing.
They don't have the rules of engagement. They don't have authority to shoot at someone. Many of the people I talk to, they're like, I'm not going to do that even if they tell me to.
Oh, so it's harmless then, because you were able to confirm anecdotally that in a situation out of a soldier's control when they're holding a weapon, no mistakes will be made and no orders will be given that actually create the pressure they need to resist as opposed to just talking about it. I am glad you thought this through and come to this conclusion. Beautiful.
The Democrats look at that and they say, okay, look, it's a military coup is coming. They're going to overthrow the country. Very convenient for them because then they don't have to deliver on anything. They don't need to have any actual policy concessions. They can just say, look how scary the other side is.
Remember that time they actually tried that and it was quite inconvenient for them as well?
And like I said before, corrosive to democratic culture.
Stop saying corrosive to democracy as though that isn't extremely bad by itself.
everyone benefits except the public.
What Ken's doing here by calling Trump's actions impotent isn't actually a criticism. He's telling people on the left that their worries about it are overblown. Calling the National Guard kayfabe, as though mobilizing thousands of people with guns isn't in itself an extremely serious action, makes it harder to rightfully call it out as an overreach intended to suppress democratic state resistance, even if he's also doing it to put on a show for the red states that support him. Like, a boxing match is a show, but that doesn't make a punch after the bell okay just because you should be expecting to get hit.
And like what Trump is doing is wrong. Obviously, I disagree with what he's doing with deploying the National Guard as well. But the way that it's marketed by Democrats.
How should one market the president?
Hey, William Rowe, thanks for the tier 1 sub. Really appreciate that.
Sending the National Guard into a city where they're not needed, in a state where they're not wanted, for a crime problem that doesn't exist, entirely as a show of force for their own base that ratchets up the temperature for violence that you say you wanted to bring down because of its ability to encourage someone to take matters into their own hands. Anything for that. Now, Anna praises Thomas Massie for his handling of the Epstein files in a hearing with Kash Patel. It seems like he's really acting on his principles with regards to the need to protect women from dangerous predators. Except for that time he voted against reauthorizing the Prevent Violence Against Women Act.
We got to give Massey credit for calling Kash Patel out for the lie that he told when he was testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee just yesterday. We used to have more sophisticated liars in the administration. Deciding where you land on political policy, depending on like political labels, is a good way of promoting things that might actually be destructive for your life. You know what I'm saying?
I do not.
You know, I that's why at this point I look at both parties and I'm like, listen, I'm just going to judge on an issue by issue basis. And
you're saying this immediately after covering how the administration is covering for pedophiles because one of them said they were upset while remaining in that party.
In terms of the political elite, I think that, you know, both sides have really failed ordinary Americans.
Oh, this film.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit.
You know, the only way that Trump can really carry out a coup is if he gets the military to back it. And I don't think that they would. I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
Obligatory Israel coverage, this time about soldiers needing more help from the government to manage the psychological distress and trauma they endured from their service.
You're watching Israeli soldiers dump piles of psychiatric medications on the table during a Knesset subcommittee meeting on mental health, because it was never about getting the hostages back. A political project that Netanyahu has always wanted, which is this expansionist Greater Israel policy.
Expansionist.
And it also allows him to remain in power at a time when
now, the Young Turks, they say Greater Israel a lot, even when they talk about places outside of Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. They use it to talk about Syria, Lebanon, but they never really say what their border for. I've never seen them say what their border for Greater Israel actually is, like what they envision when they say it.
He's facing serious corruption charges. That's who Netanyahu is.
Before we move on from that, Anna alludes to October 7th being an inside job.
Serious examples in recent years where he was critical of, you know, some of what the Israeli government was up to. Certainly after October 7th, he went on the PBD podcast and kind of questioned whether the government allowed it to happen, whether there were stand down orders. And now we have some IDF testimony where they're claiming that they were told to stand down.
I'm not willing to cut Cenk any slack at this point that he's unaware of who Candace Owens is or what she has been saying about Charlie Kirk.
Please check out Candace.
Ceasefire deal is going to be signed tomorrow, according to Times of Israel. Ooh! I heard it from one person before. I don't see why they would lie about it, but it's like anecdotal. Someone said that in Lebanon, people who were sympathetic to Hezbollah they still read Israeli press, obviously, because they want to know what's being said. And apparently there's like a thing where they tended to trust Times of Israel over the other ones on factuality. So they would see a claim about like, oh, Israel did this thing, or like this soldier died or whatever, and they would typically say something like Times of Israel said it. Like, if Times of Israel said it, it's probably true. That's only anecdotal. Maybe it only speaks to a couple of people. But it might have also just been to only confirm things that they wanted to believe anyway. Like, they generally do. They seem to be the most dry, factual outlet compared to Jerusalem Post has its very fucking sus moments. Ynet, same. Haaretz, same. But this is all just, it's fucking with me though. It's always fucking with me. The fact that like this can be called objective reporting, where they can say, it's objective reporting when these guys say, sources tell us that the people involved are maybe hoping, hopefully, maybe expecting, anticipating that this thing might happen. I'm like, okay, so you might as well just be reporting nothing at all, right? But you know, mediators aiming to sign deal tomorrow to immediately free living hostages, begin ceasefire, sources tell TOI. They're currently planning for an agreement to be signed tomorrow between Israel and Hamas that will see the immediate release of remaining hostages, living hostages, in exchange for a ceasefire. It would be like a phase then. Yeah, it's always like some secondhand hearsay or fucking, I don't know. I mean, that's better than nothing, even if that's all they do.
So it was on the Charlie Kirk issue. She does some solid deep dives. Disrupt Daily says, Tucker says some really nice things about Cenk.
I don't know who specifically came out and said that Bibi killed Charlie Kirk, but now that he's for the second time denying that he is, people are going, what's actually going on here? You're not making people feel comfortable with the fact that you keep coming out to have to deny something that certainly wasn't asserted by me on this program. Am I lying?
So the fact that he brushes past that comment is just, be better, man. Then Anna plays a clip of Benny Johnson talking to himself in the future as a lead into Jimmy Kimmel getting pulled off the air after making a joke about Kirk's assassination. Cenk thinks that it was bad to pull him.
And then my guesses came over, oh, you're right, I get it. We shouldn't have done that, right?
I think I disagree with you.
Anna thinks there's some legitimacy due to what Kimmel said, making the right upset.
Put your shoes in the shoes of conservatives.
Maybe there's a world where that makes sense, but it's not one where the outrage being generated was preemptively manufactured.
People on the Supreme Court that's full of Trump picks voted 9-0 against the government using pressure. About government officials using pressure to get these outcomes in terms of the First Amendment. 9-0 the Supreme Court, not even that long ago.
The right has not shown any kind of good faith even about Charlie Kirk's murder, and there's no reason to think that validating that manufactured anger will do anything but enable even more manufactured anger. Then they look at new polling which suggests the Ute likes socialism more than capitalism.
What is a Ute? Excuse me, Your Honor. Youths.
And a distaste for what a capitalistic society has led to. Giant wealth inequality, unaffordable housing, all sorts of issues that Democrats are blaming on.
The problems we are experiencing are not inherent to capitalism and can still exist under socialism. People will push the limits of what they can get away with to gain any kind of advantage for themselves. A socialist society does not inherently do anything to fix that, and if anything, makes it harder to fix. That's something to wrestle with in how it's implemented. To say that capitalism as a system in itself is inherently the cause of these issues shifts the blame and therefore makes finding solutions difficult, because any kind of improvement that doesn't dissolve capitalism becomes seen as ineffective.
No, what's wrong, guys, is money and politics. Certainly, we're all against corporatism because it attacks all of us.
I agree for the most part.
And now, weird shit I can't explain that's had me spiraling since I started watching the Young Turks. Why does their website still sell merchandise that promotes social distancing and hand washing? Do they have the likeness rights to Rosa Parks, Kentaji Brown Jackson, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Ayanna Pressley to be selling shirts with their likeness, according to the descriptions? Are some of the designs AI generated? Dr. Rashad Ritchie, who hosts Indisputable on the Young Turks, has 3 PhDs and invented a device that cures Alzheimer's? Why does he have an award from a website that advertises itself as having an award, with AI generated photos of people holding the award? Why don't the number of new subscribers on the separate join pages sync up? Why do they have a Substack when the owner is extremely right-wing? Why is there nothing to indicate on the main website that the Young Turks has an advertising department that's operated by Cenk's former presidential campaign manager, who runs a PAC that paid for 2 of the advertisements, according to the descriptions on the YouTube videos and FEC disclosures? Why did Cenk accept sponsorship from a coffee company that promised to donate to progressive causes that happen to all be operated, affiliated with, or owned by Cenk? Why does that coffee site list about $22,000 raised for those causes, but only a little less than 10% of that can be accounted for in FEC disclosures? Why does it look like that coffee site stopped updating in 2022 with no announcement based on complaints on the TYT forum? Why are the Young Turks sponsored by Chapter, a Medicare assistance program that was founded by Vivek Ramaswamy? Why did they accept sponsorship by Polymarket, which got a large investment from Peter Thiel? Why did Cenk have such an extended relationship with Joseph Sandberg, former CEO of Aspiration Bank, before the bank declared bankruptcy, and Sandberg Zuckerberg pled guilty to wire fraud this past August? Why did Cenk run for president and raise almost $500,000 despite being constitutionally ineligible? I nearly lost my mind trying to answer most of these questions. If there's anyone out there watching this who can in some form shed any light on this, please, my sanity is fading. I need to know what's going on. Day 4 is the last we'll see of Cenk, unfortunately, and for a few days following that, the Young Turks had substitute hosts for their main show, so we're just going to skip all that and jump to the next appearance of Anna, which, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, is the show following up Jillian Michaels' departure from Her Take.
Man, it is good to be back. It really, really is. This is my home. This is where I love to share the news.
So Jillian Michaels walked off the set of Her Take. I don't want to mischaracterize Anna here, so I will say that she is very insistent that Charlie Kirk was not killed by Israel.
I do not believe that there is any evidence drawing a direct connection between Charlie Kirk's assassination and Israel.
And that the issue she was trying to discuss was Zionist donor pressure on Charlie Kirk due to his criticism of Israel. I'm glad she explicitly calls out Kirk getting killed by Israel as a baseless conspiracy theory. Her chat doesn't believe her. I'd like to specifically call out that by minute 30, I have seen 4 spammed comments literally about the protocols of the elders of Zion and anti-Semitic conspiracy theory about Jews running the world that were left unmoderated.
He felt that he was being smeared as an anti-Semite, which he clearly wasn't.
And Jewish donors, they have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do, because Jewish donors have been the #1 funding mechanism of radical, open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. This is a beast created by secular Jews. And now it's coming for Jews, and they're like, what on earth happened? And it's not just the colleges. It's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it.
This is not about Jews, as I've said a billion times before. There is also an intentional conflation of Israel and Jewish people in general. And that's done intentionally to smear anyone who dares to be critical of Israel as an anti-Semite. Today it was reported that, and this is by Max Blumenthal, by the way, he's naming names.
Hey, using Max Blumenthal. Russian Times, Sputnik, Max Blumenthal. The Israeli army actually killed all those civilians.
It's Russia Today, actually, not Russian Times. Yes, he did actually he butchered that clip of the guy from the helicopter to make it sound like he was claiming that he just fucking spray and prayed a bunch of civilians on October 7th, which no one backs up, by the way. People still do this. People still say that there are admissions now that the Hannibal Doctrine was applied in some cases with soldiers, not civilians, in Israel. I think it accounts for a grand total of like less than like 12 or 15 deaths. But people use it to argue that like most of the deaths on October 7th or like any substantial amount of them were actually caused by the Israelis. It's very stupid. The tank shell in a home wasn't even Hannibal. That seems to have been either a miscommunication or a mistake or a reckless fire, but that wasn't even Hannibal. Hannibal accounts for soldiers, not for civilians.
Max Blumenthal as a source here.
Ultra-Zionist billionaire Robert Shillman, I kid you not, that is his name.
Always with the names. From there we get an unintentionally hilarious segue into the next story.
We'll get to the news. We'll get to the really important matters of the day, including Trump basically listing people he doesn't like as terrorists in the country. We'll be right back.
So Trump has decided to label Antifa a terrorist organization despite it not having any kind of structural organizing behind it.
So this really does remind me of the excesses we saw from the federal government in the aftermath of 9/11. Terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Thousands of innocent Americans died as a result of Al-Qaeda's attack. And people are scared. And when people are scared, when people are angry, that's the perfect opportunity for, the federal government and authoritarian figures within the federal government with authoritarian tendencies to take full advantage. And that's what I believe Trump is doing here.
And here's where you can see the crystallization of why I called out Anna's unintentional slips on prior days. When she's about to call Trump an authoritarian, she pulls it back. And in case that might seem like a one-off, she uses that specific phrase, authoritarian tendencies, to describe other world leaders. And then she equates it with the hypothetical of being upset at Biden if he crapped down on protesters too by saying the people who protested lockdowns had a right to?
Because I remember when, the shutdowns had happened.
If your Kaya tweet goes to 100K likes, I'll like the stream. That's so generous of you, Damian Sanchez. My God, what an absolute hero. What a giga chad. A like of the stream. Wow. You're so important.
During COVID. And there were plenty of conservative protesters who were peacefully protesting.
Despite the fact that, the lockdowns were under Trump.
So I had no problem with people protesting the shutdowns. And those people were predominantly right-wing. But the impotency of this specific order does not mean that we shouldn't be concerned about Trump's decision.
You agreed with Ken Klippenstein yesterday that the National Guard in cities was kayfabe to distract people on par with Democrats calling him a dictator. Why would you consider this to be any different?
One tactic has been to target the tax-exempt status of nonprofits. I actually don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you. I think nonprofits should be investigated far more than they have been.
I have no idea what Anna thinks 501c3 organizations are, because there are about 1.5 million of them in this country as of 2022. And giving this administration more power to go after them is guaranteed to cause problems, because they're not going to target churches advocating for Trump. They're going to focus on charities that help people get abortions or provide housing to LGBT kids when their parents kick them out.
And so you either believe in our Constitution and you believe in protecting everyone's right, or you don't. And if you don't believe in that, then you don't believe in our Constitution. You don't believe in what this country stands for. So I guess we're going to have to wait and see how this really plays out. Leaders, and this isn't just about America, leaders worldwide who tend to have authoritarian tendencies, the real strong men, tend to have the thinnest skin, don't they?
You can just call them authoritarian.
So say it.
Say what?
Say the word you want to say.
I'm not saying that I want to say it. I'm just saying that I can't.
Sure you can. Say it. Say it right now. I will say it with you.
Okay.
And you shouldn't allow tragic events in this country to be exploited by any politicians, any political leaders for their own agenda and political means. And that's what's happening right now.
For some reason, I'm going to give Anna some credit here and say that she doesn't mean literally everything, given how people already politicize things like school shootings.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Tucker Carlson's 9/11 special.
There's this repeated belief Cenk and Anna have that when they go on conservative media, they're bringing along their ideology to a new audience.
Tucker Carlson's 9/11 special. It's like a series, isn't it? It's like 5 or 6 episodes. Would it be a good idea to go over that? I wonder. Do I want to do a deep dive into 9/11? No, I've got too many projects. No, we need to learn how to say no, guys. I'm a yes man. We're learning to say no.
That they can hopefully convince.
From an honest perspective, like what the left actually thinks on some of these issues.
But they're not there to be debated. They're brought on to be a punching bag. Debate on those platforms is not an effective means of communicating to those audiences. I can't prove it, but Anna's description of Tucker's 9/11 special reads like ad copy.
No, I'm going to admit that for the longest time, when people would say, oh, 9/11 was an inside job, I'd like roll my eyes. Like, what the hell does that even mean? And I don't think that our government orchestrated 9/11. I don't think that they did something or planned to slaughter 3,000 American citizens on September 11th, 2001. Okay. But I encourage you to watch the entire episode.
You! So are you gonna... Yes, I'm gonna do it!
Osama bin Laden was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to a wealthy and well-connected family. Osama left his education in 1979 to fight in Afghanistan against
Osama
was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to a wealthy and well-connected family. Osama left his education.
Wait, where is he? Where the fuck is he? Is that him? Why didn't they circle Osama? Man, I am so fucking bad at this. Also, he has a massive beard and he's blind and he's like, and I'm face blind and he's old. They are so decked out though. Look at these clothes. It's actually amazing. Front center. What, him? He's in the yellow turtleneck. Oh, this guy. Osama. He's in the top of the car as a little kid. Fuck off. What, this guy? You guys are assholes.
In 1979 to fight in Afghanistan against the Soviets. He formed Al-Qaeda.
That's literally my small-ass Swedish hometown. Nice one.
With other veterans of the war after it ended in 1988. They were extremely religiously conservative, and their goal was to bring about an Islamic caliphate in the Middle East. After Saudi Arabia rejected bin Laden's help to fight Iraq during the Gulf War, where they instead accepted U.S. support, bin Laden declared a jihad on both Saudi Arabia and the U.S. He was subsequently expelled from Saudi Arabia and...
What was that story there?
Was to bring about an Islamic caliphate in the Middle East. After Saudi Arabia rejected bin Laden's help to fight Iraq during the Gulf War, where they instead accepted U.S. support, bin Laden declared a jihad on both Saudi Arabia and the U.S. He was subsequently...
he was just slighted. He was just like, nah, we don't want you, dipshit. Oh, this is him. Osama. Obama Laden. I don't. Okay. Okay.
Expelled from Saudi Arabia and disowned by his family, eventually setting up a base of operations.
He was made stateless by Saudi, wasn't he?
Afghanistan with support of the Taliban. Between 1991 and 2001, Al-Qaeda commits several terrorist attacks against the United States and others. Notes found in 2011 during the raid that killed bin Laden outline his initial planning of the September 11th attacks. The inspiration came from a pilot in 1999 who intentionally crashed their plane. Bin Laden would finance the eventual hijackers coming to America and receiving flight lessons. While multiple American intelligence agencies were tracking Al-Qaeda members, including ones that came to the United States, bureaucratic barriers and interdepartmental reluctance meant that there was no fully coordinated effort to handle them. During the 9/11 Commission, this was specifically brought up and called out. On September 11th, 2001, hijackers smuggled knives and box cutters through security and boarded cross-country flights on the East Coast that would be loaded with fuel. 2 planes would be flown into the World Trade Center and 1 plane would hit the Pentagon. A 4th, United Flight 93, crashed before it could hit any potential target, the passengers having fought back against the hijackers. While the fires in the towers were not hot enough to outright melt the steel structure, they were able to significantly weaken their integrity, and along with the physical damage caused by the planes, it was enough to cause their
I thought you either turned it into jelly or it does nothing. That's what I thought.
Collapse. They fell straight down because they're fucking buildings. The upper towers that buckled the floors beneath them didn't have enough force acting on them from the outside, and the angle of the damage within them could not heave their massive size to fall at a sharper angle. Professional demolitions, you see, don't just collapse inwards because of the way the explosives are planted. Part of the professional expertise is to make sure that the subsequent rubble isn't blasted outward, which, if you couldn't tell by the plume of smoke and rubble, the collapse of the Twin Towers very much did. Building 7 across the street from the World Trade Center collapsed because the building caught fire and burned for hours. Though a passport from a hijacker was found some blocks from the World Trade Center and was delivered to the police, it was not found directly on top of the rubble of Building 7. All you need to do is look at the references on Wikipedia to know that the information Hannah is talking about in Tucker's special has been known for almost 20 years at this point.
I think it was informative. It was backed up by documentation that was provided by Tucker Carlson. Definitely watch it for yourself.
After that, Anna talks about Trump's speech at the UN.
Questioned the point of the UN and even tore into European countries for their...
And blames Israel for the refugee crisis in the Middle East and North Africa.
The president of the United States is under the impression that the U.S. can aid and abet Israel in destabilizing Muslim and Arab countries in the Middle East and in Africa, and then essentially lead to a massive refugee crisis, which ends up getting absorbed by Europe. And then we go ahead and we mock Europe about it.
Again, even when Trump got his first ceasefire deal and there were supposed to be multiple phases.
Trump did not get that ceasefire deal. Trump was not in office. It would have been illegal for them to negotiate with him. It would have been the equivalent of Reagan saying that Iran should hold onto the hostages so that he could win the election against Carter. That peace deal was one of Biden's last acts as president, and everybody on the far left gave Trump credit for it.
But the U.S. is fully captured by the Israeli government. They're trying to get the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah. And in the meantime, they're occupying southern Lebanon. And I mean, they just killed 4 American citizens in Lebanon. That was a story that broke yesterday. It got no attention. You know, there was some public...
Why did she say the Lebanese government are people who ran on a priority of disarming Hezbollah? They both want, both Aoun and Nawaf Salam, they both want Hezbollah disarmed. They don't like Hezbollah. Okay.
Publications that wrote about it. 4 American citizens, 3 of them were children. And I want to be very clear, Israel, meaning the Israeli government, not the people, because the people have been protesting. They do care about the hostages. The government of Israel doesn't care about the hostages. And I find it hard to believe that there are still 20 living Israeli hostages in Gaza. Don't pretend like this is about the hostages. Israel has bombed.
Netanyahu apologized to Qatar before he apologized to the hostage families. That's insane.
Several other countries that have nothing to do with Hamas. They're annexing the West Bank, has nothing to do with Hamas. It's just lies.
It's giving Mike from PA at this point.
The founding charter for the Likud party specifically, it specifies that the goal for the party is to pursue the Greater Israel Project. And all of those surrounding Arab countries with governments that are essentially deferential to Israel at the moment. I mean, Israel's been bombing your country too. You're going to sit there and take it. It's amazing. But Lebanon, go ahead and disarm Hezbollah. See how that works out for you. I'm sure Israel will play nice.
So are you going to...
I mean, yeah. Is that a prediction? Can we just hold her to that if Hezbollah gets disarmed, which I think the government have put as their intention? They haven't given a timeline for it. America said they want it to happen by the end of the year. The government's probably being a bit more reasonable or a bit more measured than that, a bit more cautious than saying just 1 year timeline. But yeah, what's the assumption? Can we just wait and see if that happens then? Can we just see? Okay, Hezbollah are weaker than ever. And Israel is farther out of Lebanon than they were when Hezbollah were fighting with them. So ZJM, thanks for the 10 gifted subs. You are too much, my friend. That's 40 gifties this entire stream. My God. Absolute flame. Making the super chat goal look pathetic. God damn it. Thank you so much.
you doing?
Hezbollah was founded in 1982 after the Israeli invasion of Lebanon. They had a strong affinity for the Iranian Revolution and Islamic governance. With the support of the IRGC, Iran's army, they received training and unified the different factions in Lebanon, eventually outlining their mission as the destruction of Israel, kicking the U.S. out of the Middle East and establishing an Islamic caliphate. They commit several terrorist attacks across the world, bombings, hijackings, and assassinations. After the end of the Lebanese civil war, Hezbollah shifts towards becoming a political organization. In 1992, members run for public office and win. Hezbollah receives funding and weapons from Iran for their opposition to Israel, and their control of southern Lebanon splits the country. In 2006,
I'd say it's not so much of a shift as a branching out. They expanded into a political...
engages in skirmishes with the IDF in order to take hostages they can exchange for Lebanese prisoners in Israel. Israel responds by invading Lebanon for a third time. In 2009, the United States determines Hezbollah is connected to global drug trafficking. In 2012, Hezbollah joins the Syrian civil war on the side of Bashar al-Assad, during which time over 600,000 people are killed, including with starvation and chemical weapons. On October 8th, Hezbollah follows the October 7th Hamas attacks with rocket fire and artillery shelling in northern Israel. Tens of thousands are forced to evacuate for months due to the continuous barrage. Israel eventually responds with a fourth invasion of Lebanon, preceded by multiple attacks, including the activation of explosives hidden in the pagers of thousands of Hezbollah militants, and airstrikes that kill Hezbollah's leader at the time, Hassan Nasrallah. Though the pager attack only results in a small number of civilian casualties, the airstrikes kill hundreds. Syrians, upon hearing about the death of Nasrallah, celebrate in the streets. By November 2024, a ceasefire is outlined, and the Lebanese army, along with the UN and Israeli intelligence, embarks on the full disarmament of Hezbollah. Israel does not meet goals outlined for IDF withdrawal in the coming months. However, the land they occupy is not annexed.
But I obviously fully agree with you. I don't think there's any indication that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk. You can't be throwing out theories like that because it just makes anyone who is legitimately critical of Israel and they have receipts to back it up sound like they're part
the
of like
legitimate zoggers who only strongly imply that they did 9/11.
a group of conspiracy theorists. And in this case...
Then we're on to Congressman Josh Gottheimer appearing on CNN to criticize Zoran Mamdani, and concludes the truth behind the criticism is that Mamdani doesn't support Israel.
Okay, the fact that he is not willing to be deferential to the needs and wants of a foreign government is the issue.
Then she says that him and anyone else who has accepted donations from Israel are captured.
Effectively bribed by the Israel lobby are captured by that foreign government. Josh Gottheimer happens to be one of them.
And Anna takes the time to misunderstand why people have a problem with globalize the intifada.
It doesn't automatically mean that you're looking to engage in violent political action.
Again, the second intifada saw over 100 suicide bombings of targets like cafes and buses before we get to any of the other violence that occurred.
It's a little bit unfair. I think to the Spanish people who came up with that cuisine, I don't know.
Infatadas.
But that's the last story. Sometimes they end on a big dramatic swing.
Bernie cap. Jesus.
Sometimes they just kinda...
Hey guys, this is a story that, actually two stories that came out, and I hate that it's become normalized so that we don't even cover it that much, so I'm trying to fix that. One is about Al Green, but he did a town hall recently where he played some recordings of people who'd called in, who, when we cover these issues, the right wing says, oh, you're bringing up race. No, I'm pretty sure that those callers were bringing up race. We're supposed to brush that off, I guess. But why? And so it's easy for you sitting at home, no matter who you are and where you are on the political spectrum, to say, Al Green shouldn't sweat it when they talk about lynching him. But you might have a different perspective if you were Al Green. It's not like there hasn't been violence done to Democratic legislators by right-wingers, including recently. You say that's just anecdotal. First of all, anecdotal to you, again, a little bit more concerned if you're Al Green. When you ask Republicans, do you believe Obama was born in the U.S.? You know, Bernie Sanders has said this in the past, it's a great point. His father's from Poland originally, but nobody ever questions whether Bernie Sanders was born in the U.S. And there's Bernie Sanders, Obama, both progressives, in Obama's case, kind of. 39% of Republicans, even after Trump admitted that he was lying about it. So unfortunately, it affects a huge percentage of the Republican Party. And then the most extreme elements are the ones here talking about lynching and murdering black people. It's also Republican politicians. So there's a Republican member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. His name is Carl Oliver. If the, and I use the term extremely loosely, quote, leadership of Louisiana wishes to, in a Naziist fashion, ironic, burn books or destroy historical monuments of our history, they should be, and this is capitalized, lynched. It is a trend worth noting. Doesn't mean that every Republican believes it. It certainly doesn't mean every Republican politician believes it. But there are some conservatives out there now openly talking about lynching black people.
It's so mad that they've been at this for so long. Like, how can you be this much of a seasoned political veteran commentator and be so full of shit? It's crazy.
And so we should not normalize that. We should not accept it. We should call it out for what it is. So call it what it is and understand what we're dealing with here.
Marshall McLuhan was a media theorist who coined the phrase, the medium is the message. What this means is that the way you convey a message determines how that message is received and contextualizes it beyond the words themselves. For example, whether a popular streamer is charismatic or interesting, their popularity conveys a message of importance that compels people to continue listening to them, even as they're waiting, potentially for hours. to hear something entertaining or informative. Their reputation creates an expectation for an eventual result. A handwritten letter you receive in the mail will hold greater sentimentality than a text message. Imagine two people in the 60s spending all night feeding quarters into a payphone so they can just talk to each other about nothing. The difficulty, sincerity, and appreciation represented in the tools we use to communicate determine the value of the communication as much as the communication itself. By presenting as progressives, the Young Turks can say whatever they want, even if it contradicts the principles and standards of those belief systems, and it will be taken as adhering to them because the baseline of the communication is that what you are receiving should be progressivism. As their audience loses the communication skills necessary to espouse their political beliefs, the resulting cognitive dissonance makes it so the shortest path to resolving their own belief system becomes the removal of barriers to implementing it, rather than doing the work to convince people. There's something I call the theory doom spiral that I've alluded to in my previous videos. When your strongest ideological belief becomes the complete removal of externalities or consequences, the inevitable conclusion is that any action you choose to take is an immoral one. There are two paths that diverge from this perspective. One is to lock yourself in a room and choose to do nothing so that you can affect nothing. The other is to make it so no one else's choices can have the negative externalities you want to prevent. In short, totalitarianism. Not just the kind you might want to implement from this perspective, but the kind you start to see in the way that your beliefs are no longer represented in the way the world functions.
We have lost our democracy.
This guy's been to society. He's lived in society. Well, true.
See one negative externality after another affecting people in ways that seem obviously preventable. Depending on how closely you pay attention to this stuff, it might seem out of pocket for me to say that the connection between the opposite ends of the political horseshoe is anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, especially when Cenk nor Tucker have directly said, "It's the Jews." But what are the conspiracies they actually traffic in? Israel controls the government. The people in charge are ignoring you. The government doesn't work.
None of your representatives represent you.
And we see what that kind of thinking has done to people. The black pill isn't nihilism, it's burnout. Burnout people on the fringes are more likely to experience from the aggressiveness of their allies, the success of their enemies, and the high bar for success set by people like Hassan and Mike and Cenk and Anna.
I don't know.
Cenk has been using the same script for the last 20 years. Both parties are corrupt, the rich control everything, and voting doesn't do anything until it does.
Yes, the Republicans are dirty and corrupt as it gets, but so are the Democrats.
But now he's come up against a wall because what everyone else already figured out is that this time it's real.
See that? I just shot my foot. And it's real!
Cenk cried wolf pack too many times, and now the flock is being eaten. Our democracy is in danger. The people in charge aren't listening. And it turns out it wasn't both sides doing it. It was just one.
No. He has no intention of changing a damn thing.
For the last 30 plus years at this point, a lot of people have been able to live comfortable lives on the aesthetic of rebellion that you could tune in and tune out of without having to deal with any direct consequences. Media has allowed us to outsource our responsibility to stay informed, and alternative media has outsourced the burden of maintaining social cohesion. But now those burdens have gotten much heavier, and the people who need help moving them have gotten a lot louder. Talking about Republicans and Democrats as the same when Republicans are out of power is a much different experience from when the Republicans are in power. Suddenly you remember the years of the Democratic administration as significantly more stable.
You look like you've had a bad day.
Tell me about it.
Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said very much.
Say that again.
Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said very much.
Hey, tell me about it.
Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said very much.
Yeah, say that again.
Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said very much.
Okay, we get the point.
You see a fresh update on culture wars you didn't know people had the energy to fight. You thought Democrats needed to do a better job of convincing you. But Republicans should have already done that. And why didn't they seem as bad? Why were they exactly the same as Democrats?
Oh, now why would you use that picture? God.
Because people like Cenk and Anna have been
That's
telling...
only someone who was more or less best friends with Epstein around this time.
You that.
99 out of 10 times he's a liar. He got money to lie to you.
InfoWars told you 9/11 was an inside job. And the Young Turks told you that Democrats and Republicans are beholden to the same people. And that 9/11 could have been an inside job.
I don't know.
Everything is a conspiracy. Nothing is by accident. A comfortable lie that the chaos we experience is actually being guided by some unseen force.
But peace, nonetheless.
Insert religious symbol as metaphor here. It wasn't just 30 years of right-wing media turning people's brains to soup.
Box
it was the
Network?
alternative left.
Why'd he do that? What the fuck?
media too. People outsource their need to think, and the
Is it a
result is
call-out?
that everyone is being fed the strongest emotions that will convince you to watch advertisements and sell merchandise. Consequences be damned.
You cannot rely on the federal government. They're the bad guys.
Cenk is right about the media, but for the wrong reason, and he's the proof. He isn't being paid to not talk about Israel, and yet when Israel comes up, he isn't actually saying anything his audience doesn't already believe. It's the same feedback loop as Piers Morgan, or Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro debating college students. The chemical urge in your brain for salt, fat, and sugar brings you back to McDonald's. The chemical urge for unanimity brings you back to political debate.
They're not listening. You think we're having a debate in this country?
Cenk clings to the edgy veneer of being a professional news show on YouTube, but his main sponsor is a Medicare assistance line owned by Vivek Ramaswamy. He is political fast food, corporate media paid for by companies with significant ties to Republicans, presented on a...
What was that? What did he say? What did he say?
But his main sponsor is...
Ask Chapter USA. It's this. Medicare advisor. Chapter. Okay. Help you understand when to enroll. Is this just to help people get fucking, help people? Understand when to enroll for enrolling for Medicare. It's like advice on enrolling for Medicare. Is that what it is? This is just like, God, fucking United States. Okay. Ask Chapter Vivek Ramaswamy. Medicare startup co-founded by Vivek Ramaswamy. $39 a year, 45. Okay, wait, this is Fast Company. Fuck off. Jesus Christ. Hang on, not that. Yahoo Finance, TechCrunch. Okay. Let's do some learning. Co-founded by Ramaswamy that was valued at $1.5 billion. Okay. Biotech entrepreneur, advisor to Trump's second term, early advisor, former Republican presidential candidate. What does it do? It helps the nation's seniors navigate the Medicare system and choose a health plan. Now, how does it work in the United States? Because I'd imagine if you're in the US, you might want a professional or someone who knows what they're doing to help you choose a Medicare plan that's actually good for you or best for you. But do you actually need it, or are there alternatives? Vance has no involvement in Chapter. Okay. Previously involved with Doge. This could affect Medicare's ability to perform business as usual. Oh. There might be nothing inherently wrong with this company, but if you're young Turks, of course there is. Because that's a politician, the Republican Party, making people pay to help them with healthcare coverage. That's like that's ultimate fucking donor class shit. Peter Thiel, dude, Business Insider. Okay, let's see. Let's get involved. Chapter. A Peter Thiel-backed startup that helps older people enroll in Medicare just raised $17 million. For what? For themselves. Funding round led by J.D. Vance's firm, Naria Capital. Oh, this is just Republicans scratching the backs of Republicans. So Peter Thiel, Vivek, J.D. Vance money. I feel like this could be its entire, like this could be its own video. The fuck? Wait, what Palantir? Okay. We need an evidence board, don't we? We need the evidence board with some red string to tie all this shit together. Who are the Young Turks top donors? Please don't give me Armenian genocide shit. (2017). What about recently? Donor lookups. List of investors. Here we go. Okay. We need Taylor Lorenz on this job. Bro, she would not give a fuck. This isn't dark money. This is obviously shining, screaming, blinding money. Well, this is 2013, dude. The fuck? I want 2025, but 2024. Donor lookup. Open secrets, please. The Young Turks. Why 2015, bro? Why are you doing this to me? This is their people they donated to, wasn't it? Who currently funds TYT, the Young Turks Network? Would they have it on their own site? Why 2017? Why would you do that to me? Company profile? They've raised 3L Capital. Los Angeles, Jank. Okay. They raised $27.8 million in funding from Rumor, Robinson, Melville, and 3L Capital. Investors. This is old, though. Jesus. Employee count. Who are these guys? Romer, Robinson, Melville, and 3L. So I know they announced it. I just want to know how much they get from them. Or is it like a sponsor? Is it just a sponsorship? Is that what they did? Or is it a sponsorship? Or because a sponsorship and a donor aren't quite the same thing, are they? What's this? Oh. Yes, of course I've seen the Democrat Regina George. Stop that. Give me a minute. Hey, what did he say there? What's the sentence?
Is a Medicare and clings to the edgy veneer of being a professional news show on YouTube, but his main sponsor is a Medicare assist.
Main sponsor. I guess you wouldn't see that on these websites. You wouldn't see main sponsor. Is this just like the sponsorships that they mostly read out during their videos? Is that what we're meaning? They do sponsorships for Vivek's fucking Medicare, Vivek's Medicare company that also involves Peter Thiel and has raised money from JD Vance's company. Gotcha. Okay. That's kind of insane. Okay.
Assistance line owned by Vivek Ramaswamy. He is political fast food, corporate media paid for by companies with significant ties to Republicans, presented on a website operated by one of the largest tech companies in the world. The ability for anyone to post a video on YouTube themselves doesn't change that. As his critiques of both sides become harder to justify, the pattern becomes more obvious. He isn't trying to inform. He's trying to convey a vibe, and that vibe is no longer comforting people the way it used to, now that the consequences are real. Hopefully with upcoming elections, Republicans will be pushed back out of power, and when that happens, the cycle will continue of setting grand expectations so that when disillusionment and disappointment set back in, they can lure you right back with the safety of a Democratic administration to accept that same rhetoric about inaction. Cenk talks about politicians doing nothing, But his argument is that we should do nothing, that we bear no responsibility for the society that we live in. It's the job of politicians to helm society, and we're just along for the ride. That's why there are no consequences for our own actions. Why he can say we've lost our democracy well before Donald Trump was even in the 2015 Republican primary. It is simultaneously a justification for, and a criticism of, a conspiracy of elites. Do you see how dangerous that is? Do you see what that has resulted in? Republican victories are printed in money, but Democratic victories are printed in blood. And at this point, there is no argument otherwise. Compare total lives lost that could theoretically have been prevented if we had just had a different administration.
Nice.
COVID, Hurricane Maria, the Great Recession, the Iraq War. If you could go back in time, would you stop Trump from getting reelected? Would you stop him from getting elected the first time? Would you tell people in 2010 that keeping a congressional majority to avoid Republican census control will make getting future legislation easier? Would you tell people to vote for Kerry in 2004? Would you tell people to vote for Gore instead of Bush? We've been going around like this for decades, and we know looking back where the inflection points were. They were in the ballot boxes. Now pretend you're you 25 years in the future, looking back and wondering what political defeats could have been prevented if there was just more shared civic responsibility among those most politically knowledgeable. And then listen when they tell you that casting a vote is easier than unpolluting a river.
Good video, folks. That was Conduit. You should subscribe to that channel and like the video and leave a comment, a Lonerbox bump comment. If you so wish, I will link it in the thing. Watch it again so you can make up your own mind about it. Who knows? Okay.